Okay, yeah. That's all we have.
Maybe it's your phone.
So there it goes. Yeah. Okay, we will call to order the HARC regular meeting of January 17th at 5:33 PM at hybrid, it's as a hybrid meeting at Rebecca Hall, 113 West Columbia. If the public wants to join by phone, the call-in numbers tonight are 301-715-8592. Meeting ID is 858-9638-0068 with a passcode of 257117. This will be live streamed on YouTube. Site walk, want to read the announcement of our site walk at 2 PM on January 17th at 650 through 654 West Colorado. And during the site walk, we only had discussions that related to the orientation of the site, physical characteristics of the site, and the layout of the site. Present at the walk were myself, Karen Lannon, Matt Lee, Stacy Lake, Bob Mather, Elitza, Andrew, Jonna, and James Van Hoosier, and members of the applicant team. With that, we'll call the meeting to order with a roll call. Present from staff are Jonna Piper, let's see, Scott Robson online, from council, Dan Enright.
Lena.
And did I see
Mark, Elena's here.
Ellen.
Right behind me.
right here, live and in person? That's why I don't see her here. Should look up. That's what they tell airline pilots. Okay. Get their head out of the cockpit. So, well, council members, thanks for joining us. We'll go ahead and have the roll call for HARC.
Kieran Lannon, Stacy Lake, Matt Lee,
Mark, yes.
Bob Mather,
Andrew Williamson.
Elita Mladenova.
Okay. Do we have a motion for the approval of the minutes from our regular meeting on December 13th?
to approve them as written.
Matt will second.
Kieran, yes. Stacy, yes. Matt, yes.
Mark, yes.
Bob, yes.
And I will move to approve the HARC chair.
You won't. Cause it was me.
Oh, I had to recuse myself.
It is.
Did you show up? How was it?
Great. That was good.
Okay.
Read the minutes.
But, okay,
You didn't read the minutes? No.
not your minutes.
I will move to approve the HARC chairperson meeting minutes dated December 15th, 2023.
Thanks for taking that. Staff announcements, Jonna.
Thank you. This is my last advertisement for the Saving Places Conference. It's coming up the end of this month. There is a virtual version. I will be attending virtually for some of the sessions. If you're interested, just let me know in the next week or so, and Tammy and I will get you signed up. Anybody thinking they might wanna attend in person or
It's the
virtually?
31st.
31st through February 2nd.
I'm interested, but I can't.
All right, download with us on anything historic.
You know, many of the sessions can be downloaded, and maybe we'll make a mini training of one of them if they're, you know, if there's a standout and worth our time.
That'd be great.
Okay. And then last week at the council meeting, town council made changes to most of the boards and commissions. But they did not make any changes to HARC or PNC. So, no changes to the membership or,
Oh. Thank you.
you bet. And, I have the slide ready for the public hearing process. If you'd like me to share that, Mark.
Please. Just one last announcement is Jonna has invited the Design Guidelines Committee tomorrow to another meeting, and my guess is 2 more meetings and we may be there. So this will be really important, but then Jonna's got the final write-ups to review with the whole board and the community, and then somebody's gonna have to print the book and lots of other things, I guess.
Few steps left, but yeah.
Yeah. So that
Get
was
there.
left over from our last strategic planning, so. Okay, with respect to anybody out there listening and or anybody live here, just a reminder of the process. The HARC chair will introduce the project, staff gives a presentation and answers HARC's questions. The applicant then gives a presentation and answers HARC's questions. We asked for 30 minutes or less per project. The public will be invited to make comments on this specific project. We asked for 3 minutes or less per person, and if there's something that you want to repeat, just say you agree with this, and let's not repeat everything. If you would respect that, so we get everybody a chance to comment. There's no dialogue permitted with the public and HARC members, applicants, but the public will have their chance to speak. The applicant then has the rebuttal to be able to address any comments or questions heard, which we encourage you to do. And then after that rebuttal, HARC members will then deliberate and vote on the application. So thanks, Jonna, for the reminder. As a reminder, well, I'll ask the question. Is there any public comment on non-agenda items? Or are you all here to talk about agenda? Okay. Thanks for coming. Let's start with the first public hearing item, which is the Tower House continuation from December 13th, HARC meeting. It's consideration of an application for the Tower House condos west, a small scale application for new construction outside of the THLD that will contain 2,000 square foot or more of floor area, but not more than 5,000 square foot per land use code 203 B2 B1. The Tower House condos east, a small scale application, almost identical, pretty much identical for the new construction of outside of the THLD will contain 2,000 square foot or more, not more than 5,000 square feet per land use code 7203 B2 B1. And then substantial scale application for demolition of a non-designated structure for land use code 7203 B1 C2. Legal descriptions, lots 31 and 32, Bachman Village, West Tower House condos, and lot, excuse me, 33 Bachman Village, subdivision west. Tell you right. The address is 650 to 654 West Colorado. It's in the accommodations 2 district. Block 23 Housing Corp is the owner. It's a Colorado nonprofit. Applicant Norris Design, staff member Jonna Wenzel. Jonna?
Thank you. Just a reminder that HARC's first formal review of these projects was at the December 13th HARC meeting. And prior to that, a work session was held in October on both of the Tower House projects. We know these sites well. We've had work sessions. We've been out there on a site walk today. But the site is located on the south side of Colorado Avenue and the west side of Tomboy Street. It's in the accommodations 2 zone district and the accommodations treatment area. The existing tower house is a condominium structure that was built around 1982 and so is not historic. Here is a streetscape of that block, including Clark's Market, the Village Leasehold, Canyonland site, and the projects we're considering just now are the 2 condo buildings facing Colorado Avenue on the north side of that lot. So this project proposes demolition of the non-historic Tower House condo building and new construction of 2 new condominium buildings known as the East Condo Building and the West Condo Building. These projects are both small scale, as each of the buildings is less than 5,000 square feet. They are almost identical, but a separate plan set for each building is provided in the packet. I've provided them into this one memo and presentation. So first, to talk about the demolition application, the criteria for demolition of a non-rated or non-designated structure, A5 through A9 apply to the existing tower house structure. Staff finds that all of the criteria are met. And I'll mention that this application for demolition is part of this condo project. Obviously, the tower house also exists on the same site as the townhomes project, but you'll be considering it along with these applications, just the one time. So from December, HARC continued these application applications with 15 conditions, which I will go over briefly. Condition number 1 from previously was to ensure that the front porches do not cross the property line. The property line has been extended a bit to make sure that those front porches are now entirely on the property. This was previously, here's the property line cutting through the porch. This is currently where the property line is just outside those front porches. So this one has been complied with. Condition number 2 is to more clearly define the front entrances. The front entrances have been more clearly defined. The center entries of each building, which we discussed last time, now is accentuated by a hipped roof covering the door. And the others, which previously were kind of hidden behind the porch railing, are now in line and have a clear sight line to the front door from the sidewalk. Condition number 3 was to provide a landscape plan with species and quantities of plants. That has been provided on sheet LS 100. Condition number 4 was the stone should appear to be a native type stone. The applicants have brought a sample of that stone to share with you here at the meeting tonight. Condition number 5 was to provide a clear distinction between the foundation and wall material. And previously the brick was extended to the ground. Now it has been revised, foundation has been revised to concrete, which provides some distinction between the foundation and the wall. Condition number 6 was to provide a cut sheet of proposed light fixtures that are consistent with the exterior lighting standards. And those types of fixtures that are proposed appear to be appropriate and consistent with the lighting standards. Condition number 7 was to replace sconces on the upper level decks with step lights. It appears that the sconces on the upper level decks have been replaced by step lights, but they're still proposed high up on the wall. And the idea of step lights is that they're installed close to the floor so that the light spill is minimized. So that condition will be retained. Condition number 8 is similarly replace the sconces on the upper level walls of the south and east facades of the west building and the south facade of the east building with step lights. Same situation where those light fixtures have been installed high on the wall rather than lower on the wall, again to minimize light spill. Condition number 9 was final approval of these applications is contingent upon approval of the Canyonlands and Tower House Affordable Housing Large Scale Preliminary PUD and Subdivision. That one will be retained until the preliminary PUD and subdivision are approved. Condition number 10 was to adjust window proportion, size, and placement to be more traditional, ensure that all doors are no more than 2/3 light. The window configurations have been revised. Previously, here's the previous configuration, here's the current configuration. The windows are more aligned. It appears that more windows have been added, so the board can discuss whether this condition is met. And then the second part of that condition, which refers to the 2/3 light doors. The entry doors have been made 2/3 light, but the deck doors appear to be full light, so that condition has been retained as well. Condition number 11 was to revise the deck post details. The deck posts have been revised to appear more traditional. The railings are now a variety of materials to distinguish between the different facades and units. Condition number 12 was to reduce the northeast massing from 3 stories to 2 stories on the corner. So on this east building, which is the terracotta colored building, the northeast corner of the 3rd story has been revised to a balcony and a deck, which extends around the corner. So they've deleted a portion of the roof to provide some stepping down. HARC, however, should determine if this revision meets this condition. And then since 15 relates to number 12, which was set back the third floor north elevation. Again, this northeast corner has been revised. The third floors on the other units haven't been revised. HARC might want to clarify if that applied to all of the units or just this one corner unit and determine if this revision meets the condition. Going back to condition number 13 was to differentiate the architecture between the four gable forms. The architecture among the forms hasn't been revised per se. However, the details on the front porches have been revised to provide some differentiation. The porch roofs have been revised, the railings have been revised. There's still pretty much identical buildings. Condition number 4 was to provide bicycle parking facilities, and bike storage is provided on the south side of the east building in the walkway between the north buildings and the south building. So these are new conditions, which actually are conditions that were retained from the previous conditions. So those are to install the step lights closer to the floor or deck. Ensure that all doors, including deck doors, are no more than 2/3 light. Final approval is contingent on the approval of the PUD and subdivision. If you decide to continue these applications, there are 2 possible dates, which are February 21st or March 20th. You can discuss which date the applicants would prefer. If you decide to approve with conditions, I'll just remind you there are 2 motions. One is for demolition. And Kate's not here. Lindsay's here with Norris Design, and John Lee with Designs of Tomorrow are here representing the applicant team for all of these applications tonight. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
John, I have a question. Under the criteria for demolition, the second criteria, 306.A.6, and I'll just read it quickly because it's not very long. Subsequent development on the property will add to the architectural character of the neighborhood more than the structures to be demolished. And underneath your comment is that demolition of the existing structure will not significantly affect the architectural character of the neighborhood. It almost, when I read that, I thought perhaps I'd get to the bottom and find that criteria hadn't been supported, or was that your intent, or is that just my reading between the lines too much there?
I think you're misreading my intention.
Okay.
I think that being a non-rated structure, some people would argue that we should maybe try to preserve the 80s funkiness, but the structure is not rated and not protected.
Like, I'm just clarifying.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for clarifying.
And then I guess this could be an applicant question, but the concrete at the foundation, what's the finish? Is that just raw concrete? A board form concrete?
I don't know that they specified, but I'm sure they could answer that.
Okay.
for you.
I'll ask that question again.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Could you just go back to the elevations that compare the two again, please, real quickly for me?
This one?
The next one. The ones that are at the side. The sides, yeah.
Side, yeah, windows.
Well, I'll talk to the applicant about that.
Okay.
Or when we,
Could you put on the slide that shows both the front elevations before and after? Just gonna leave it up for a bit. Yeah, I don't have any questions. I just can check it out.
I want to leave this probably the most important slide up there for a while. Well,
There-
when you're
there-
done.
Yeah, they'll have to give their presentation. Are there any other questions, or I'll stop sharing?
I have a question.
Oh,
Go ahead.
yes.
Yeah, sorry. It's actually clarification on the setback to the north. you guys basically changed the property line location, not the facade. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm. And that'll be something for P and Z to determine. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead and repeat your name just for the record, just this once, and then, so we have it on.
Yeah, I'm John Lee with Dot Architecture.
And Linda Newman with Norris Design. It's great to see you all again.
Welcome back. It's been a few hours.
Just a few, yeah, in about a month and a couple holidays, a couple of snowstorms. So we are going to run through our presentation for the Tower House condos, east and west. I did want to start off with just a little bit of an overview again on the accommodations 2 district, which will pertain to all of our applications, and I won't give it 4 times to spare you all. So just, do you want to go to the next slide, John? So, you know, the purpose of the accommodations 2 district is generally to provide the higher densities and housing for residents. And, you know, we don't have any setbacks in this area, which we'll go through a little bit more detail and some of how the front is related to Colorado Avenue. And also just some other homes along on Mahoney Street for reference. But in terms of site context, there's many other buildings in the accommodations 2 district and along Colorado Avenue streetscape that have a similar or lesser setback to the, basically to the sidewalk or the curb, or are 3 stories along the street. So we have some examples, including Mendota, which we've talked about, the ancillary elements that encroach in the right of way. And we've pulled a lot of ours out of the right of way just based on conversations we've been having with both HARC and planning and zoning. And we have the Gold Belt building as well shown here, which is across the street from us. And we did talk about the Hotel Telluride a lot in our last meeting, so we did look a little more into that one. Basically, we just wanted to mention that the landscaped area in front of the building is actually under separate ownership, so that is a vacant lot that could be redeveloped in the future. And then the second slide that we have here, if you go to the next slide, shows just some of the accommodations to district homes along Mahoney Street, and a lot of these are adjacent to the street and 3 stories tall with minimal landscaping. So we're hoping that what we're providing here is in compliance with this district and maybe even exceeding a lot of what's out there and a lot of the context that we're looking at. So if we go to our site plan here, we'll go through the HARC conditions really quickly. Jonna covered them really well, so we don't want to be too redundant. But if John goes to the next slide, he has highlighted the conditions that we feel are still things that we need to work through based on the conversations we've had so far and our staff report from Jonna. So that's what we'll be focusing on tonight in our presentation, to try to get through some of the remaining concerns. But understanding that we had a lot of conditions last time, and we hope we've met all of those. So here's our proposed updated site plan for the Tower House site. So we're, of course, on the Colorado Avenue corridor portion of the accommodations 2 district. So we're looking to provide some dense landscaping along the street to create that green corridor that transitions from the town boundary at the west to the historic district at the east. And we have created the open space along the front of the buildings, and we're using this as our positive open space with additional trees from what you've seen previously along that Colorado Avenue frontage. The condo building setback is approximately 25 feet or so from the primary structure to the sidewalk. So that's the landscaped yard area. And just for reference, Mendota is set back approximately 18 feet from that sidewalk to the primary structure. So we're having the majority of our landscaping focus on Colorado Avenue frontage to allow this open space to contribute to minimizing the mass and scale per the design guidelines. And we also have shown here the existing trees to remain. So those are highlighted with the more solid circle. So we've shown one on the adjacent property because we are installing a new sidewalk there. So we wanted to show that we're being conscientious of the fact that we want to preserve as many trees as possible. And even if we have to do some sort of a detail to the sidewalk to make that work, we're going to do it because we want that to stay. And then we have an additional tree and another smaller tree right in front of Tower House Condo West. And then the rest are proposed. And I think we did point out that one existing aspen in our site visit as sort of like where the building was going to be And you can see it's a bit further back from the building. So with that, we've also added some additional landscaping in between the buildings, so between condos west and Tower House townhomes. And then thinking about how we can contribute to open space with this courtyard space by creating, we have some bike storage here, there's a walking path, and just some additional landscaping to help create a better transition between those buildings.
Great, and then with that, I'll jump in. So yeah, Jonna did a great job of covering the majority of the concerns, and we kind of just wanted to focus in on the ones we were figuring would be a little bit more of a conversation. So one of those would be the step back of the corner. We did try a lot of different ideas, but really at the end of the day, we wanted to keep this small scale and keep it two separate buildings. And one of the things we looked at was joining those, and it just really didn't feel like it was the right call to put the buildings closer together. And so this is kind of where we landed, was creating this balcony and this step down at the corner. A lot of the other items that Jonna had mentioned, the lighting and things, we're working through that with her currently. We can't show a lot of that because it wasn't in your packet, but we are working through those things now. Another big thing with the addition, this is the before and after, is we did try to change a lot of the roof forms and balcony treatments so that the buildings did feel different. We like the simplicity of the gables, which is why we kept those and weren't trying to add a lot more complexity to that. Because that is part of some of the guidelines, was to keep the forms simple. And I will jump into the 3D model next. These are showing some of the trees that we propose to add, but I'm going to turn those off so that we can see the buildings a little bit better. So as you can see at the corner, we do start to step down more with that balcony. And then as you turn the corner here, we did look for some inspiration on how to make these two different, these buildings feel different. So we kept some of the detailing from the original, but then we joined these two roofs together. So it felt kind of like its own unique element. So we've also included a lot of different railing types. So that also helps break up visually the buildings. And then, as Jonna mentioned, we did add that break in the facade material, which we were looking between a smooth finish and a board formed finish. We hadn't really decided on that finish yet, but I know that's one of the questions. We did simplify the windows and tried to stack those. In this version, they are all kind of the same size. They were a little bit off prior, where some on certain floors were bigger than others, but now it's more consistent. So yeah, with that, love to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. And assumption that ones you didn't talk about are probably not going to come up again, so you've made some progress.
Yeah, in there.
But we got two big ones to address, so questions?
Just a quick one, that between the two buildings, it's all just landscape. It's not, there's no access between those two.
Correct. We did look at an option where we had a sidewalk, but it got to be a lot of sidewalk on the project. And we did want to keep some planted areas, and that was an opportunity to add some plants.
Well, my wife's a landscape architect. She'd probably tell you that stuff between there's not going to grow very well.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of shadow for sure.
Yeah.
So.
And then, so the people in the rear building would come around, would they park in the back? These people would park in the back and they'd come around this side,
The
east side on sidewalk to come into their buildings.
Yeah, we did add a brand new sidewalk around the side of the building, which isn't currently existing, to aid in that path from the parking to the front of the buildings.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
I have a question about the grading here on the corner and the elevation of the finished floor. So from your drawings, the sort of at the bend here on the sidewalk and the road, the existing grade is called out at 87.46 and the proposed grade is called out the same. and your building elevation is at 48.05. So I'm wondering why it's that high? Why are you ramping into the building, since I believe some of these are ADA units versus having the finished floor elevation either sort of even with the sidewalk or slightly above? I mean, there would be the ability to swale in the landscaping zone so that, you know, a wheelchair doesn't have to go uphill, which would also allow the buildings to come down a foot or 18 inches or so.
So we have looked at that. We are still working through some of those conditions on site. Moving the ramp to align with the doors actually did help us a little bit in that regard. The bigger issues are that, you know, we do have bedrooms on that level and we do have to stay the 2 feet above the floodplain. So that is part of why we're up a little bit higher. And then we do have the ADA ramps on all 4 of the bottom units to kind of maintain that accessibility. But that's the main reason, was accessibility, and then the floodplain is why we're at the heights we're at.
So, but if the sidewalk was, if you were at the elevation of the sidewalk, you won't really need ramps. You just need sidewalks that are wide enough for wheelchairs.
Yeah, and this rendering is just more of an illustration. It's not exact, so we would defer to civil on that, but we will kind of work through some of those issues to try to get the building as tight to the site as we can.
And do you know what your floodplain elevation number is?
I don't have that in front of me, unfortunately. I don't have that one memorized.
Could you provide that in the next packet?
We can.
Okay. I had a real minor thing looking at the landscape plans between the east and west packet. The west packet is omitting a tree on this corner here. That's the east packet is showing. So I'm curious, which one is your plan? One shows 3 new trees and one shows 2 new trees.
We have 3 new trees along the front.
So
And then 1 existing, well, 2 existing that are to be preserved.
where I see there's one existing that's going to be preserved by the relocated sidewalk on the north end. Where was
It's these 2 here that are
It's
the
like,
circle.
it's a small cluster. There's,
okay.
So there's 2 there and then 3 along the front.
So the landscape packet drawing LS 100 on the eastern set, the east building, sorry, is the correct one to look at. So I have another question. One of those trees is showing most of its or third of its canopy is over into the building. So I'm curious about the scale of these trees. I don't see a caliber. So maybe, do you have a caliber noted here?
2-inch aspen. So they're, you know, these are shown at full maturity. So
Would you mind going to your sheet LS 100 so everyone can see what I'm asking about?
Sure.
I'm not,
You're not. No.
I didn't have mine zoomed pulled up. Sorry. I didn't know we were gonna be sharing our full drawings. It's it's the same as what's on here. So are you talking about the canopy and the white on Tower House Condo East?
Yeah, the one that's the
So
farthest.
this should be
to
exactly the same as our drawings. Yeah. So you're talking about how that's overlapping with the
I'm just
building?
saying it's a pretty massive canopy that's overlapping the building and it's very close to the building. So I'm wondering what your true intent is for the size of the trees are.
Yeah, so right now it's a 2-inch caliper aspen and it's shown adjacent to a porch. So it might overhang the porch a little bit. It could be shifted slightly to the north to remove some of that, but you know. Aspens generally have smaller tree canopies. This is a 20-year maturity circle, so that's.
I would imagine as it ages, we'll trim back the tree
Yeah,
at the porches, but yeah, yeah.
we do have some electric pedestals just to the north of that, and that's why it's shifted so far back. We want to make sure that we're including some landscape in there.
Okay.
Yep, we can shift it a little bit more away from the building.
Those are all my questions.
Other questions, the applicants? Anybody? So, what they're thinking, I have one follow-up question on Matt's, because it would affect the way I view the guidelines. Um, especially previous condition number 15, where when we'll get into discussion and you're, I always like to bring this up proactively before we lose you.
Yeah.
Wherein, you know, consistent interpretation of the guidelines on a setback is not just a balcony, it's a change of wall plane. But this could be also affected somewhat by Matt's question of if this building went down 18 inches, but I know you don't know the answer, hard answer now till checking the civil, but you've looked at it a lot. I mean, is it fair to say that it could go down at least a foot or not?
That's a very hard question because there's a lot that we were dealing with the way that corner goes
Okay.
around. And so civil has pushed back on us. We have to push them pretty hard to lower it, but we're working through those things now, but it's a tricky one to lower.
Okay.
For that building.
And I understand and respect you don't have the answer, but I was hoping there was one of these we could approve with conditions tonight, but this won't be it then, because we're gonna need to see
Okay.
it. So, okay. No other questions?
I just have a quick one. Do you know offhand how many square feet you lost out of that third level room on the northeast corner by pulling in that corner?
Probably 50 square feet. 40, 50 square feet, somewhere in that range. It was a closet and now it's a porch, so. Again, really what we were trying to achieve was scale through adding additional buildings versus it being one massive building. And like I said, we did study it really hard to try to get that second floor to step. And it did push us to push the buildings together, which would have had us go back to a large scale application. And so we really wanted to avoid that by having the buildings be separate. So.
I got another question that occurred to me. You've added these two new entries with these little hip roofs that are sort of in the middle of the two gable massing forms. You made an interesting move on the western upper porch where you've connected those. Did you explore, or would you be open to exploring a similar idea over the entry so that it feels a bit foreign, like it's not connected or grounded with anything else in the project other than themselves? And so both to differentiate them from both buildings and just to integrate the architecture with the other two gable forms a bit more.
Could you zoom in on the white and blue building, that entry, just to see a little?
He's
closer
talking,
what-
yeah.
what's
This one
going on?
here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you were talking on the east end, right, Matt?
I was talking about both. I mean, they're
Oh, no,
they're
okay.
the same move on both buildings.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, we're open to anything with that. Could you be a little more specific on what you mean?
Well, so where you're above your mouse here, you've connected the upper roofs here. So you differentiated that between the eastern building, which I like that move very much. And so I'm not saying replicate it, but if you had some way to integrate it with the datum of the decks or the guardrails or something that it just feels a bit foreign. It's not really integrated with either form.
So you're saying make a connection more or less between the balconies that act as kind of a bridge?
I'm
to-
saying
for the
that could be
design.
one option to
Okay.
integrate that mass with the overall architecture.
Okay,
I don't know if it's appropriate to do the same move on both buildings, but it stood out as an issue. I reviewed
Okay.
the drawing.
yeah, we can look at a separate treatment for one of those, and so we did want to try to make them different enough so that they weren't trying to copy one another, but we can work on that.
And
That
what-
could be done in two different ways. So that it does, but I think I agree with the idea of hiding that cross there a little bit more.
Okay, we'll probably note that soon. I had one other question. What's the return or the delta to the north between on the east condos, the blue unit and the brown unit? How much proud is that blue unit?
This here,
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on the east.
this.
Yeah.
This here,
How much proud is that wall plane on the east? 3 feet? Did I
I'd have to pull up the drawing. real
that
quick.
down?
You have that?
Like 2.5 feet.
2.5, okay.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Are you done, Mark? Ask a question.
Oh, yeah.
Would you mind pulling up the south elevation, the backside where the parking is, please?
Different project.
Different
That's-
Oh,
project.
sorry. Yeah,
That's
that's right.
next.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's coming up. Okay.
Could you zoom out of this model and kind of so we can see from a bird's eye perspective, both these units and Mendota? And I'm mostly sort of concerned about how far they're both set off Colorado. So if you could spin it around the other way, so we're looking more from the northeast.
this direction.
Bless you.
And just to note, the buildings surrounding this is all approximations. I don't have drawings, so we got as close as we could.
So could you show Mendota with your building as well? Yeah. And is there a way to, can you easily turn off the landscaping?
I can, 1 second.
Do you mind panning up a little bit more of an aerial view looking down on them?
Sure. And I think Lindsay has some dimensions on those things if you want.
I think it was 18 foot I heard
Yeah,
say
and that's from.
versus 25 feet.
Generally from the primary structure, and that's the same with the condos. I didn't measure from the porches.
Thank you.
And if you go back to the frontal view for discussion and for the public to view. We'll go ahead, I guess, and take questions. So from the public, if you would like to raise your hand electronically, if you want to comment, or if you're in the audience, please come up and state your name. We ask for you 3 minutes or less, please. And anybody here want to comment on this one? Please come on up, just state your name into the mic and next to.
Just you can come up here. This mic will.
Hi, my name's Andrea Holmquist. I'm a resident of the current tower house. I'm here with my roommates, Amanda Gibbons, and my other roommates here, Williams. We all work in town. We've all lived in this community for a number of years now and feel like this is a part of our home, this community, and really love it here. We're all really active and work in the community and really enjoy getting to be a part of Telluride. So as much as we support this project, and I really believe that it's really gonna improve housing options for everyone in town here, we were curious about how that would affect us. You know, we're being displaced by this project, so is there any housing available for us from the town? Any
I have to interject.
suggestions?
Our board can only adjudicate the design guidelines,
Okay.
and that would be for, well, good question for town staff and or even P and Z, but town staff.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Okay.
I can't.
No, I appreciate that.
Totally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that information.
asking.
Yeah,
Well, good luck. It's a great question. So
yeah.
hope somebody answers it.
And then just one other comment, you know, we're still living in this home as they're developing. So they're currently doing the framing and we were never informed of any development that's happening. So it was kind of a surprise to suddenly have our home being worked on.
Those will be taken down on Friday. They're
Okay.
just visual devices.
Yeah.
It's not construction that will stay.
Okay, thank you.
They'll go away.
And then we were just hoping in the future, if there were anything like that to occur, that we'd be informed maybe in advance, just so we can anticipate that, you know, like we didn't have parking in our driveway for a number of days. My car was blocked in for a number of days. A few things like that happened.
Thank you.
So, yeah, thank you.
Okay, and we have some online questions. Wow. Okay, we'll start at the top. Sherry Harvey, please unmute yourself or unmute and thank you for tuning in.
Hi, this is Sherry Harvey. I wanted to make a few comments and follow up on some of the questions that were asked to the applicant. so this is kind of all over the place. It's not in order, but at the top of my list is that what's going to happen in between those buildings is that snow is going to clobber any plants that get put there. So I don't anticipate that area as being a landscaped space as much as policy 13, which talks about open space. And policy 13 isn't thin. It has remove reduction in A through E. And D says provide positive open space within a project. And I think that's still lacking here. The first thing that I thought of when I saw the changes made was that the front of these buildings still looks like the back with the double decks. Policy 15 that talks about building orientation that I think you used in one of your conditions. That the introduction is pretty good and applies to this problem I think this project has. I think there's more variety and design in Bachman Village than there is in just these kind of monopoly style pieces. As much as they've tried to like twist little tiny details, they're still 4 massive 3-story gables in a row. So getting to that is obviously policy 16 and setbacks, which you've talked about. And I don't think just losing 40 or 45 square feet on the one corner of the 3rd level, but still having a deck there does anything to alter these setbacks. So I would greatly encourage the board to reread 15. Setbacks should be similar to those found traditionally for the building type and other properties within the neighboring area. I don't think the Gold Belt building or Mendota have these 3-story elements in a row like that. And again, I still think we're cramming in too many units and they're not of the quality that's going for young professionals or families that would potentially could live here. I think we should think about the quality of what we're building versus just the quantity. The other notes that I had were policy 6E, which is pedestrian scale, and E was to provide visual interest on all facades and elevations that will be seen from the streets. There's no visual interest here. And policy 13. So if Mendota has 18 feet across the street, shouldn't we try and be contextual? I mean, that's all of policy 1 and policy 2 in the accommodations guidelines. And my last question is, how does town just get to alter the property line? I mean, the intention of the condition was to create a setback, and instead they just go in and alter the property line. That's not I mean, that's not really copacetic. I think they should try and really get to the intention of that condition rather than change the property line. Those are my comments on this project. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd add that question can only be answered a week from Thursday at P&Z. So, thank you. Next is Matthew Intermeister.
Yes, hi, thank you. Matthew Hintermeister, Town of Telluride resident. I just wanted to point out something the applicant had said that's not true, is that there is no buildable lot to the south of the existing Hotel Telluride. There is a small triangle of town-owned open space. Maybe they were thinking about the small lots to the west of the hotel, but even when and if those are developed, that will not impact the setback to the hotel. So, thanks.
Thank you. Dan Enright, welcome, please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Chair. I just really wanted to respond to the previous commenter from who lives in the tower house and just reach out personally. Sorry to take all of your time on non-HARC related business, but if they're still in the room, I didn't catch their name. Please reach out to me. I am a council person and I very much want to make you feel comfortable that we are taking care of your housing needs and not displacing you. We have systems in place for this. We have been working with our housing department to make sure that that's not happening. Reach out to me on my Instagram, Enright for Telluride, or email me to my council email, Enright or dnright@telluride-co.gov. Sorry for taking all your time. Thanks for the good meeting. Bye for now.
Thanks, Dan. Dennis Andrico. Yes, please unmute and
Mute. Hi, it's Dennis Andraco. I'm a Mendota resident. I am looking forward to this project actually happening and going forward, even though I live across the street and it might disrupt some of my sleep or just regular patterns, which I am okay with. I was just looking at this front elevation, and on the farthest east sidewalk in front of that terracotta building, I would suggest, and if I lived there, I would probably just immediately take a right, getting out my door and just jump off the edge there. So I would suggest maybe the sidewalk continues all the way to the new sidewalk that's gonna be adjacent to South Tomboy Road. That's just a suggestion for everybody. And then I was curious as to why HARC recommended and started to learn more about the setbacks, but why that balcony on the third floor of that furthest east was recommended, and why would we be eliminating square footage in deed restricted housing when I believe people are already being crammed into too small spaces. I personally would rather have a closet than a balcony. And I was curious as to what, I couldn't find how many units were proposed between the east and the west tower house buildings. And was curious, it looked like on Main Street, there were gonna be 4 parking spaces with 2 ADA parking spaces. And I imagine that you'll have more than 6 units between these two buildings, and was curious what was being done or how parking would be affected, knowing that there is parking on South Tomboy Road around the corner from this project that gets taken away from November 1st to April 1st for snow storage. And I just was curious about the parking because it's already a stressed situation in that area of town currently. So thank you guys for your hard work, and I look forward to hearing the rest of the meeting.
thank you. Anybody else out there would like to comment? Raise your hand electronically before we close this particular project out and start deliberations, but we'll have comment from the applicant first. I am seeing no additional ones, so the applicant could rebut the ones that were relevant to the guidelines. That would be helpful.
Sure, I can start with parking if you'd like. That was the last one that was mentioned, and we are providing 1 space per unit. So there's parking spaces along the back on South Tomboy within our property. And then additional 3 spaces on Colorado Avenue there's going to be 7 added total for the entire PUD. 3 will be allocated towards the tower house condos, with the remaining 5 in the back because there's 8 units in the condos. And then the townhomes, which we'll get to in a little bit, will have separate parking. But what else?
I think you covered it. I mean, overall, the design guidelines are what we're working on following and working with you guys. So we don't have any further comments on the design comment that was made.
Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to deliberations. As usual, welcome everybody's discussion first on if you agree with 1 through 3, and then the elephant in the room, goal 12 and 15, and any other ones, some additional ones. So who would like to go first?
I can. So I think, first of all, I agree with John's conditions 1 through 3. I believe we should reinstate conditions 12 and 15. I have a few other things I'd like to discuss with the board. The more I look at all these projects as a whole, I'm reminded of a comment that Stacy made in our first work session of the Colorado Avenue corridor and the setbacks of these buildings to Colorado Avenue. And in the introduction to guidelines, number 4 talks about this corridor and how it's important to have substantial landscaping to extend a green corridor from the town boundary to the historic district. There are other guidelines farther on that talk about landscape buffers. And the applicant seems to keep moving their property lines into the right of way to satisfy our conditions, and that's not really the intent of our conditions, at least as I see it. It's to take these the mass that's very close to Colorado and push it further back to the south to maintain and enhance this green corridor and this landscape buffer and this green belt that we currently have. The guidelines talk about it being a green belt and then compressing, I think, right at Davis Street so that it opens up views once we get into the historic district. And I think I wasn't as focused on that in the last meeting, but I've come back around to thinking that's very important. And I would suggest that we require them to increase the front setbacks. And I want to know what everyone else thinks about that.
Keep the property line where it belongs and
I think keep the property line where it belongs.
push the decks back behind. Decks and
I think to me, it's up to debate whether what pieces of sort of decks or landscaping and planter beds might go into the right of way, but I think definitely the walls of the building, any columns that hold up decks, in my opinion, for sure should stay in the existing property lines and not in the modified property lines.
I think it makes sense.
Okay. Just straw poll, we'll speed this up. Everybody agree with this?
Agreed.
Okay,
I don't necessarily feel as strongly in this corner. I think we'll have that conversation again.
okay.
As we move west. When we went up and took that bird's eye view, I think this does start to then begin to align with it's getting closer to the historic district, the historic traditional setback along Colorado Avenue, which isn't as far back. It's sort of tunneling in as I think it maybe does some of the things that the intro says on this project, on this item.
Matt, would you think it's more critical in one of those buildings than the other to get further, to not protrude
Yeah,
past?
definitely the east
side,
building.
yeah.
I don't have as much concern with the west building. With the east building for sure.
If we're only talking east, I would compare to that.
And specifically the east unit of the east building.
Which is 2.5 feet back from the blue building as they shared. But maybe there's more room to go back. I think that's intertwined with, obviously 15 also about the step back and change in wall
Yes.
plane.
Yeah, I think it is.
Because we're not gonna buy balconies as a change in wall plane. We've been consistent about this for months and months. But,
Years.
well, okay, years. What else?
But did you get a straw poll that you wanted?
Yeah, well, except Stacy dissenting, I think, but I think it's enough to go to the motion and then we can vote.
Does anyone else have anything else to say about that?
Well, I do. I'm reading through our condition previously, number 12, reduce the northeast massing from 3 stories to 2 stories on the corner per, and then we list policy 23. I'm surprised we didn't list policy 6. Because policy 6 and Sherry Harvey's comment shed some light on it. 6E, provide visual interest on all facades and elevations that will be seen from streets. And we're definitely focused here on the north elevation, which is seen Colorado Avenue. The east elevation has been left out of that conversation. Although when it begins to wrap the corner, we start to see it. And there is a wall step, there's more going on there than the west elevation of the blue building, for sure. The question is that enough to provide visual interest and satisfy the guideline?
For me personally, I mean, I still have pretty significant problems with the lack of articulation on the eastern elevation, but we're still not even past the major mass and scale moves to bother with that. In my opinion, to critique that.
Well, yeah, my fear here is that we're gonna be bludgeoned for inconsistency. And maybe we should have spoken up more forcefully during the work session then. That's my fear. I think what's happening, and I can only speak for myself, I've had now more time. I've been able to consider this twice, right? That's twice the amount of time. And so, yeah, those bigger mass and scale questions that should have maybe received a more forceful response didn't.
Well, I think on 12, and Jonna captured it, 2 of those 3 guidelines clearly say there need to be 1 and 2-story elements which address this massing at this corner. There is no 2-story element on this project anywhere. So if it was at this corner, which they made an attempt with the step down, if it was a 2-story element, they'd have my vote. But
well, and this is gonna get to the real crux of the conversation for this project and the other 3 we're gonna hear. There's an inherent tension here between maximizing square footage at all costs, guidelines be damned, or reconciling as best we can.
Okay.
Negotiating.
we need to be blind to the applicant and the usage and adjudicate the
understand.
guidelines and leave any feelings out of it and do our job, which I know you know. And, but just why we're on it, I agree with Matt, 12 and 15 need to stay in. And if 2 of those 3 guidelines, it's not like there's a random guideline, but on number 12, 23B3 and 23D, speak to the 1 and 2-story elements. And that's what we put in the condition. I mean, I think we did our job. And I think they just put a balcony, change the roof line a little bit and then attempt 50 square feet. And, but it's not about that for us. It's the guideline. And I think Jonna's condition would solve that along with 15.
I agree. And just to clarify what I think Stacy had suggested is that policy AC6 be added to condition 12.
And that's a good point. Okay,
6E1 and 2.
6C1.
6E1 and 2.
Thank you, Stacy. What else, Matt?
Here, let's talk about the foundation materials and the change of wall plane. So I want to make sure that I'm in line with what the rest of the board was thinking. I think the intention of the condition was to change the wall plane between the stone or brick and the siding to be a more traditional relationship in construction. So you had thicker stone, thinner siding, and there was 4 to 6 inch step between the 2. What the applicant did is came in and put in a concrete band, which, by the way, isn't called out in the drawings. I assumed it was concrete, but I didn't know if it was metal or something else. And to me, that's the wrong direction of what the intention was. But I'm not sure if everyone's on the same page with that.
The band you're talking about, are you talking about at the base?
Yeah, that sort of concrete foundation piece that I think personally complicates the materiality. I would
Take the stone to the ground.
what I was thinking, yeah, stone to the ground, and there's a step between the stone and the siding. There could have been implications that the stone doesn't go a full story, or really almost a story and a half as it's receding, and that some of the siding material is interlaced and stepped down. But I kind of wanted to get the board to think about that and comment on it.
Well, it's how far back do you want to take the intent of the guideline? The intent of the guideline is to be traditional. Traditionally, foundations until you're at rubble foundations, i.e. stone, which has been replaced through the years with stone veneer at the foundation. Stone above that level was traditionally rarely used because it's an expensive material, which is
this seems to be thin stone, you know.
No,
applied
of
here.
course, but it's flipped it, right?
Right.
It's taken the stone from where it was traditionally and it's put it above and now it's exposing a foundation material. And I think that's not the
Completely wrong.
direction.
I could see a differentiation between that first floor and the second and third, just to break that up, break up that facade. But I agree with you. I think breaking the stone up that high doesn't do it.
The stone to the ground down there,
Well,
down there.
but
Got two things.
But we're just we're reversing ourselves is what it sounds like. And that's, no, I think our comment got jumbled. There is a guideline that says differentiate at the foundation. That's been done here, but it was done in a way that I don't think is traditional. That's,
Yeah, I think if you're talking about recommending stone going back down, you're just reinstating condition that was.
yeah, we're just going against a condition. I think there still needs to be differentiation between the foundation and the wall above.
Right.
So dropping the stone down doesn't do that.
Putting
The-
the
what-
stone
What I'm
there
hearing
only.
you though, Stacy, is that you would rather not see the stone occupy the entire floor of the first level.
Perhaps, although this is the one instance here where we're going slightly beyond basic, right? This is a richer material than just cement board siding. So I'm not trying to eliminate that. But there's got to be a way to do both things. I'm not saying get rid of the stone on the wall. But there should maybe as a step in a ledge.
I
or a-
agree. I think a step, that happens at the windowsill, that happens throughout one or two places would be appropriate to have that stone start to go to the ground, but then start to march down with grade.
Something. Not that.
Okay. I don't think anybody's gonna disagree with that.
I think they met the condition is all I'd say. I understand what you're saying, Matt, but just clearly differentiating. Just say, I think they met it.
They met one condition at the expense probably of another
Yeah,
one.
and it does look more complex when you see that versus this ledge idea would differentiate, but I'll go with the majority in this a minute.
What
We
about,
got
are
bigger.
we talking
Not-
about
yeah, I'm not gonna-
still having a setback between the stone wall that goes up the first floor and the second floor?
That's what I would.
Not flush.
that
Well,
would
I
be
mean-
My vote.
That we see a line there.
We do this a lot, well, not a lot. We sometimes run into conflicts between different guidelines, right? I mean, 30A says materials should be applied in a manner similar to that used historically. A hierarchy of building materials should be used with heavier, coarser material used as foundations and more refined materials used above.
Okay, well, let's fashion
Yeah.
this into a condition. Because we gotta get through this mass and scale part of this. And did you have any other?
I have a condition already written out, but it really just addresses the step from the foundation material to the siding material, so it doesn't address Stacy's concern, which I agree with, that having this sort of band of stone as a wall material above a foundation is not appropriate. I think there are numerous ways to solve it. And I also feel what I'm looking at on the screen is not the right way.
But it could be as simple as this lentil.
Not sure, possibly, yeah.
I mean, we can just leave it open, but I want to give them some kind of direction.
Well, AC 30.8.1.
All right. Tracy, say you write this one up. Do you have any other?
Yes, I've got a couple of things. I've noticed that the exterior materials and elevations aren't labeled, and this came up with this concrete popped up. And then also the material sheet seems to be the same for each project. So it seems to show materials that sometimes don't exist on the project. So I would like the applicant to clearly label the exterior materials on the elevations and material sheet. And I've got some land use code guidelines for that.
Okay.
Assuming that's pretty easy.
Yeah.
Thing to ask.
Okay.
And then the number 14, this will come up in all the ones that we're talking about. And this is a little bit different because the land use code doesn't require it here. But the combined scale of these 4 concurrent applications, which is 5 buildings, is over 37,000 square feet of floor area. So I think it's appropriate to ask for 3D views of the project, showing the existing and proposed neighborhood context, because I've struggled with the lack of documentation in this project to really understand the scale of these buildings with the scale of the neighborhood. And even though this isn't in the land use code per se, for a small scale application, I think it meets the intent of the land use code for the requirements of these models.
Okay, anything else?
Nope.
Comments down here?
I actually agree with Sherry that we should add a condition that has to deal with open space. Because policy 6. Yes, policy 6E, we mentioned this earlier. And pedestrian scale and create visual interest on all facades. I also don't think that the little open area between building east and west is sufficient to provide this public interest in open space. Vegetation won't grow there. I agree with that as well, between roof shedding and lack of sunlight. So I think this is kind of like a wasted space, and perhaps then make it at least a pathway to that little courtyard, because people at the end of the day will just walk through there regardless of any dead shrubs or pavement.
What do you think would be more valuable to the open space? And I know it states within, and we're trying to put 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag here. But if they went back to a couple feet and not intruded on the right of way and created more open space out front with more landscaping, would that help out, or do you think it was still?
Oh, I see what you're saying. That's a good point. I think that then it's more important to actually add more open space to the south setback, the front setback versus in between the buildings. Yeah.
Agree with that.
Yes? Okay. Karen?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I have another thing that I forgot to mention. Can we go to an elevation view, let's say the east elevation of the east building? So I'm curious what everyone feels about the squarish windows. We've got 2 windows that are put together. Do we feel that that's proportionally just fine, or, you know, actually does look better in the 3D view than it does in the elevations?
I'm good. It doesn't face Colorado, and I think that helps us.
When I first went through this, I made a note that I looked at the old drawings versus the new drawings. And the only difference I saw was the detail. There was more little fussy details on the windows before, and these were essentially the same, and they basically looked to me like the same size. So I was suggesting that 10 be used for number 2.
Yes, I
You just
have.
pulled out, Jonna pulled out about the doors, but I'm wondering if we should keep that.
I have it in my
Full
list
part.
to keep number 10 and then strike the part about the door. Well, actually, no, she still has that because
You
the
leave
doors
that
are,
in.
yeah. So number 10 should stay is what you're saying.
All right.
Thanks, Bob.
But John, I did mention that there were more
More windows.
more windows here. What's the board's feeling about that?
I think it fits the window to wall ratio a little bit better. Just seemed awkward wall window ratio before. So to me, it seemed more in keeping.
The new one?
Yeah, the new one.
Yeah, I don't have a problem. The overall image of the wall.
Stacy?
I appreciate the reconfiguration from the last.
Things line up.
Yeah,
better.
things like that.
I think the alignment helped, but anybody else? Everybody agree it's okay? Because we had a lot of things to do, I think we're close to having the items we want. Let me just summarize the notes of what I think we wrote, and we'll have different people write up.
Mark, can I just add one more thing really quickly, just because I'm not sure? I think, we were talking about moving the wall plane, and I agree with that in terms of getting the relief we need to reduce the visual mass and scale. I also think when you align 3 balconies, one on top of the other like that, it actually reinforces the 3-story feel of it.
Yep.
So I would just put that out there. I don't think we need to condition because they'll handle the conditions how they would, but when you're aligning 3 of those elements up, it just basically creates a wall plane.
It does. But this number 15 says set back to 3rd floor.
Mhm. Yep.
And so now at least one will be different. And that's
Yeah.
the most important one. But we're all good with 15, I think, still, right? I mean, it's changing.
I wasn't arguing for, I just wanted to
And,
point
and
that
I
out.
realize they haven't seen other projects and seeing how we've adjudicated, but it's clear that it can't just be adding that balcony, so. Okay, so what I have collected is beyond 1, 2, and 3 is adding back 12 and 15. Number 10 stays.
Change number 2 to 10.
Oh, are we gonna modify 10?
No.
Number
No.
2 becomes 10.
Number 2 becomes 10.
Okay, number 2 becomes 10. Okay, thank you, Bob. Not explore, I'll say this, accomplish the 12 to 1800 inch lowering of the building if at all possible, to lower mass and scale. Again, that'd be under 15. And the guidelines cited in that number 15, same guidelines. Or it could just be added to 15.
I think it should just be its own separate
own, okay.
condition.
Okay, same conditions. Or the same references.
I think AC 23 takes care of that citation. Just
Okay.
The whole section.
And then a new condition on restoring and at least P and Z that will then hear this for their hearing. It's their adjudication, but that restore particularly in the east building, right, Mac, the original setback without infringing on the right of way.
I am, yes, the way I have it worded is increase the front setback to allow for more mature trees and landscape to reinforce a green corridor and landscape buffer per AC introduction 4, and I've got a whole bunch of ACs.
Okay.
And then I believe Stacy had also AC 6, E 1 and 2 to add to that
Yep,
as well.
I see that. And would this be just the east building, the east of the east?
I would like to see all the buildings moved back, but I think my personal feeling is it's more important on the eastern side of the east building. But I think we should talk about it before we go into make a condition.
Okay. I'm gonna throw it out there that I think the east is more priority, but then, there's this 2'6" setback that, well, first of all, a change in wall plane would help that, so we don't need to talk about that. But how do you guys feel about the just the east of the east,
In terms of
further setback?
further setback from the new
Colorado.
From Colorado, I'm just gonna say from Colorado.
Colorado. Yes, I agree with that.
So just the east.
Yeah, east of the east. And then we have the stone. I don't know if we're gonna say solve this problem, or we can say solve this problem, or add a ledge line below the windows. I mean, we don't want to just keep going around and around in this. I think we could be here till July. So I'm willing this time at something like this, since I resolved mass scale, say, I think we should suggest something or consider several options, but accomplish the, guideline without having the concrete. I think that's a simple way to say it. Accomplish the guideline and no concrete.
Stacy, do you have any more thoughts on the wording of that?
Oh, well, I've written it down.
Hmm.
For the condition.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's here. I mean, you can just.
You
quote
got it.
the-
Okay,
quote the
you got this
guideline,
one.
Basically.
Okay. All right, so we won't mention a ledge line.
I don't think it's, in this situation, I think there's many ways to
All
resolve
right,
it.
well, they've heard some discussion, so they maybe have their own ideas too. So I'm glad it at least came up, so that's good. I don't have anything else recorded. We're serious about this open space prioritizing along Colorado by pushing it back. And I think that's all we have.
I had the label, the exterior materials elevations and the provide the 3D views, and I have language for that. in the
Okay,
proposed motion.
all right. First to four, are we ready? Who wants to make the motion?
Would you select the date?
Yeah, hey, let me throw this out there. Before we go through each of these, I went through and thought, I was really wrong about this one though. No, I wrote March. First of all, the applicant's gonna need time to redo all this and I will stop and ask them a question and get input, even though we don't always, but we're trying to be helpful here. There's no question, I think, when we get to the last one, it's a March thing. I mean, there's this serious thing. I mean, we can't, we're gonna have to answer the question now. And I'm sorry for looking ahead, but the only ones I saw that could be February would be the next one, the one behind this, townhomes. I might be wrong again. And well, and now that would be it. So there'd be one possibility in February. So we can ask them about this one.
I think we, we
We need-
can we ask them what they're comfortable with? Is that more?
Says
what-
that too.
We've asked
John, I
before.
had John had listed.
We've asked before. I mean, I'm
Mhm.
okay.
Right.
So on this one, can you get all this done before February, or by February, which means you've got about 2.5 weeks to comply? Or do you want to go for March and be more certain? I mean, it's up to you. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
willing.
I think that's what we were planning on shooting for, but we can confer with Jonna and make sure that, is that,
We gotta say now,
okay? Yeah, then that's what we're shooting for.
Which
February.
February?
It's a lot of work, but if they say yes, then
I would suggest that we have all of these out. Well, I think that the next application, or which one's it called? The
townhomes.
townhomes, since I'd say it's more of it on this conceptual level, they might be able to tackle the widespread massive scale possible changes that we might ask. That we could see in February, and I would suggest the others, at least the things that I've outlined, I would think would be a significant amount of work.
East just had a ridge line. So that was the 60-foot. That was the. But I don't think it's fair to do all these. We have shut off the community in parts of October and completely in December and now January. And I don't think it's right to shut off the community with other applications laying out there ready to come in completely for 4 or 3.5 months. So that's my belief.
I
You know?
think it might be possible to do the two, this one and the townhouses in the back, but I don't think Candyland's.
The West, right?
Yeah.
Well, let's see how we feel when we get to each of those, but for the moment, they've really volunteered to do this one in February, so unless, I think there'll still be room for some private projects that we've been, kept them at bay to move in if we're not gonna do all of them. And frankly, they get a lot more work to do on some of these others. So I don't think they can get them all in February anyway, and do it right. But we don't want any more continuations. We want to be done. And, okay, so who wants to make the motion for a February continuation?
I'll make the motion. I move to continue to the February 21st, 2024 HARC meeting. The applications for final small-scale new construction for the Tower House East condos and West condos, and the insubstantial scale demolition of the non-designated principal structure located at 650-654 West Colorado Avenue based on the staff memo dated January 17th, 2024, and with the following conditions 1 and 3 as stated.
1 through 3.
1 through 3 is stated. Number 4, reduce the northeast massing from 3 stories to 2 stories on the corner per AC 23B3, AC 23C3, and AC 23D. Number 5, set back the 3rd floor north elevation per AC 23C3 and AC 6E and F. Number 6, increase the front setbacks to allow for more mature trees and landscaping to reinforce a green corridor and landscape buffer per AC introduction number 4, AC 16B, AC 17, AC 17A and B, and B1, and AC 17G. Number 6, provide a change of wall plane between the foundation material and the siding material to mimic traditional masonry unit sizes and application methods per AC 31A 2 and 4, AC 30, and AC 30A 1 and 3.
Excuse me, is this 7?
This is 7. This is how I have them listed here. Number 8, clearly label the exterior materials on the elevations and materials sheet for land use code section 7-207I and 7-207G. Number 9, due to the combined scale of these 4 concurrent applications reaching 37,340 square feet, provide 3D views of the project showing existing and proposed neighboring context. Those are all my conditions, and I welcome some friendly amendments.
Kieran, 1 second.
I'd like to offer a friendly amendment to revise condition number 2 to read as the original condition number 10, adjust window proportion sizes and placements to be more traditional and ensure that all doors are no more than 2/3 light per AC number 32, AC number 32A, AC number 32C1, and AC number 32B2.
I have a question about that number. Can we make that, oh, that is number 10.
Number 10 replaces number 2.
I'll accept that amendment.
I'll accept that as well.
I didn't add your pedestrian escape for, if you want to add that.
Working on the foundation masonry one. I don't necessarily have a pedestrian skill.
Okay.
I did not hear the last bit of this motion is based on evidence. Did you say that?
No, I did not.
Add that in as a since it's been seconded.
Okay. I have somebody else added in?
I'd like to make a friendly amendment.
Got it right here.
This motion is based on evidence and I would like to add at the end of the proposed motion, this motion is based on evidence and testimony provided at a public hearing on January 17, 2024, with notice of such hearing provided as required by the Telluride Land Use Code, revised plans incorporating the conditions of approval. We don't need that one.
I'll accept that.
I mean, I can't say no. I accept that too.
Okay, I see that we've captured all these.
Seems like it.
So how do you vote, Kieran?
Kieran, yes.
Stacy, yes.
Matt, yes.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, we'll go on immediately to the second project, which is located right behind this. It's the Tower House Townhomes. Consideration of large scale application for new construction, the Tower House Townhomes outside of the THLD contain more than 5,000 square foot area for 7203B2A1. Legal descriptions, lot 31 and 32, Bachman Village, West Telluride, West Tower House condos, and lot 33, Bachman Village subdivision, West Telluride. The address is 650 to 654 West Colorado. Accommodations 2 district is the zone district. The owner is Block 23 Housing Corporation, a Colorado nonprofit. Applicant, Design, staff member Wenzel.
Thank you. I'll just remind everyone that we did a site walk here this afternoon for this project and wanted to make sure that the board felt that the story poles adequately represented the mass and scale of the project.
I think with the applicant's explanation of the couple of things that were off, I think it did.
Then we will proceed.
No need to redo it.
Great. That's what I'm getting. So this is the preliminary large-scale review, the first formal review of this application and the first step in a two-step review process. And a work session was held in October on this project. This is the same location that we just discussed with the previous application at the southwest corner of Colorado Avenue and South Tomboy Street. It's still in the accommodations 2 zone district in the accommodations treatment area. Again, same site, same lot. These townhomes are south of the condos that were just discussed in the last application. So this structure is proposed on the south half of the lot facing south and Tomboy Street and will comprise 3 townhome units with enclosed parking. Demolition of the existing tower house is concurrent with the applications for the east and west buildings, as I mentioned earlier, so it won't be considered as part of this application. Staff has proposed 9 conditions and recommends the application be continued based on these relating to mass and scale. Starting with number 1, which is provide more variety in setback, height, color, texture of materials, and building size and form to enhance the pedestrian experience and to reduce the appearance of mass and scale. These structures, unlike those in the front, are proposed to be at the maximum PUD height of 40 feet, which is taller than the proposed condos to the north and the duplex to the west. They are set back 3 feet from Tomboy Street on the east and provide little stepping down or emphasis on human scale. Stacked decks on the south facade provide some relief, but there's no stepping down to the south or east where pedestrians will interact with the building. Condition number 2 is to provide internal paths to better connect the parking spaces on the south with the north units. As Lindsay mentioned, I think in the previous application, in addition to parking spaces for these townhomes on the south, parking easements are proposed on this site to accommodate parking for the east and west condo buildings on the north side of this building. However, there's no internal pathway proposed to access those condos, and some connection should be provided that is more convenient than the public sidewalk. I know they mentioned during the site walk that this sidewalk on the east side is proposed to be at 5 feet, and a portion of that will be on the property, but it's not a convenient access for those condos on the north. Condition number 3 is to step down the building along the east and south. Guidelines for pedestrian scale and mass and scale speak to the need to step down larger buildings to the street and property edges to provide relief and to relate to the pedestrian scale of town. Again, this views the south and the east facade, which will be along Tomboy Street. Condition number 4 is to clearly identify the primary building entrances. Parking is proposed to the front of these entrances. The primary and only entrances to these townhomes face the south and will be obscured by that unenclosed parking in the front of the building. So the entrances should be more clearly expressed as the front and primary facade of the building. Condition 5 is to indicate location of bicycle parking. I think Lindsay mentioned that bicycle parking may be provided for these units in the pedestrian walkway, although these have garages, so maybe the parking is in the garages. Same for the trash and recycling. They have provided a sample of the stone veneer. I'm not sure if you've seen that yet. Condition number 8 is to ensure all exterior doors, including patio doors, are no more than 2/3 light. And same condition as previously, that final approval of this application is contingent on the approval of the preliminary PUD and subdivision for these sites. And once again, if you decide to continue this application, the dates are the same, February 21st or March 20th. And again, you might want to discuss that with the applicant in case their answer is different this time. Do you have any questions for me?
Lisa?
I do. So since this project is is not on Main Street, but is accessible from Tomboy Drive, shouldn't there a streetscape provided with the elevation to help out with our idea of the scale? Building relative, I mean, this is from Main Street. I would love to see one from the actual, from Tomboy.
Yeah, this is the one that was provided and it shows the tops of the roof ridges, but yes, you could certainly ask for that.
Any other questions? Okay, let's hear from the applicant.
You can go to the next slide. So we don't have much to add on in terms of the site plan, as we kind of reviewed that with the overall on the first round. But just want to point out that we do have the bike racks that are intended to be primarily for the condos, and then the homeowners at the townhomes would be able to park their bikes in their garage. So they'd have interior space for parking, and then the dumpster, John can point out where the trash is located for the condos, and then the town homeowners would put their trash in their garage as well.
Okay, so I will jump into the architecture. I'll just go to the 3D model. So as we talked about a little bit on site, it's really these 3 main gable forms, trying to keep the overall form very simple. When we looked at the stepping, it was more of a vertical step with the balconies, adding some kind of more visual interest off of those facades. We have the garage doors that are accessed kind of between some of the parking stalls, and that's kind of the main entryway to the garage. And then we do have individual front doors off the side of the building. And again, we are providing a new sidewalk. There's not really any code that says that that's not an adequate path to get to the front of the building. But we wanted to create a wider sidewalk than we typically have and make that a nice path to get into the front of the building. And overall, yeah, we'd love to get your feedback on the conditions and just be, I guess, pointed with that, and we will address that in the next round. So that's really our overview. There's a path between the buildings. But like we said, the condos have the bicycle parking and then the trash on this side, so. That's what we have, so.
Okay, thank you. Let's hear from the public. If you'd like to comment, please raise your hand electronically. And or if you're in the room, we've lost the public. Okay, here we go. Sherry Harvey. Welcome again.
Hi, this is Sherry Harvey. I wanted to read a few guidelines or a few statements from the accommodations that apply to this, apply to all of them, but specifically this application. So in the introduction, the last paragraph says substantial amounts of the accommodations treatment area are presently undeveloped. And as this area builds out, the town wishes to ensure that the neighborhood appears to be visually and functionally related to the older core. I don't think this is. As seen from a distance, the accommodations treatment area should appear to be a part of the community with essentially the same perceived street and alley arrangements, building forms, and development scale. This isn't. This is particularly important for projects on large parcels that span several parcels. Since the neighborhood is a new developing area, however, more variety in architectural design is appropriate, and when viewed up close than in other areas. I can say now that I'm on public comment and not on the board, there is no variety in this project. And this is really kind of college level design. Policy 1 talks about context compatibility. Site context, policy number 2. And policy 6A, again, to develop the ground floor level of all projects to encourage pedestrian activity, to provide variety in setback, height, color, texture, materials, and building size and form to enhance the pedestrian experience. That's just not present in this application. And also from my experience touring Longwell and Silverjack, knowing the shitty sound insulation that town basically doesn't provide, again, I just don't think that these units are going to be for young families or people that want to invest. This is like a college dorm stuff again with these balconies overlapping. And lastly, 13B is if several buildings are proposed on a site, the spaces between the buildings should contribute to the overall positive open space of the project in the area. Buildings should be positioned in the site in a manner that minimizes the apparent mass and scale and maximizes open space. I mean, this one is just, it needs a lot of work. We're trying to create a neighborhood where people can have a little bit of privacy, and we're providing housing for the amount of space that's available. We're not just cramming in the amount of rooms that town then gets to pat themselves in the back like, oh, we've provided another 20 some units. Yeah, but they're shitty. So now that I'm not in the board, I appreciate being able to use some adjectives that I wouldn't normally use. Thanks. That's it.
Thank you. Next is Dennis Andrico. Dennis, unmute yourself, please.
Thank you, Dennis Andreyko. I was just, as I'm looking at the south facade, I'm curious as to why the design, which I imagine a lot of work and thought has gone into, I'm just curious why this design is suggesting like an uncovered parking area. It seems that if the townhomes were pushed further south to whatever edge to the south they would be allowed, and some covered parking could be created, then you could potentially move your tower house east and west buildings further south, not have to change a lot line, and potentially even increase your square footage in those tower house condos. That would be more of the deed restricted local housing type of deals. I just think that's something that could be considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to electronically raise their hand? Lars Carlson. Welcome, Lars.
Hey, everyone. I just want to say I completely agree with Sherry Harvey. They look like boxes with little triangles on top. They're just very unimaginative. And I think our town deserves better. And I think for our affordable people that are going to be living in our affordable housing, we need to build something that lasts a long time, not something that's just quick, down and dirty and gets done, but then needs to be redone in 5 years. So that's just my 2 cents. Thanks everyone for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Patty McIntosh.
Yes, I agree with both Lars and Sherry. I think it's very uninviting. And I think I think Mendota is a great project and just this caliber just doesn't add up to that. So I do thank you all for your time and effort, but I think a lot of work needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Okay. Seeing none. Would you like to make a rebuttal or comments to specific comments that related to guidelines?
No, I think, yeah, I'm going to defer to you guys on those comments and, I think,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So we'll begin deliberations. Again, if you start your comments, if you agree with 1 through 9, if you have any ancillary conditions you want to add, that's fine, but and then any new ones. And I know I have a lot of notes. I see a lot of notes over here to my left and my right. I can't see the rest of you, so who would like to go first?
I'll jump in and just say, I wholeheartedly agree that conditions 1 through 9 are wholly appropriate. Given what's involved with those conditions, it's really hard to try to get to something on a deeper level. Not that this is first of 2, since it's large scale anyways, we're not talking about details here, but it's like, put it back in the oven, it's not done yet, maybe. I think there's enough guidance here that I don't really feel like there's much more I can add.
I want to come at this kind of from the top down, address guideline sections, that are towards the front of the section and not get super hung up on ones that are at the back, right? So here in a bit of a way, this is a repeat of the previous project. We're going to focus on 6E, provide interest in all facades. We're going to focus on 23, policy mass and scale. At the end of the day, what the applicant's trying to do here with these stacked gable forms just leads to non-pedestrian scale, mass and form. There's almost no way that a simple configuration like this could be pedestrian, mass and scale. There needs to be a gable form with some sort of connector, something to break up the facade. I know where this is going. I'm chopping square footage away. But let's remember, these are not affordable housing units we're reviewing in this item.
Yeah.
These are supposed to be showpieces that help fund the rest of the project. So these should be articulated perhaps a bit more. The entrances should be grand. And I did notice that in the floor plans we were given, a lot of the interior program wasn't shown, and that's fine because HARC as a board is supposed to be focused on the exterior. But that's not a grand entrance to any of those. And then we can delve down into other more ancillary issues. The way these balconies aren't grounded, they don't have any connection to the ground, they're cantilevered, serves to actually project out. It's the opposite of stepping down. There's no articulation from level to level, no stepping in and out, from level to level, but pretty basic hangups for me.
And you agree with 1 through 9?
I do.
As written.
But if anything, 1 through 9, for me, 1 through 9 are, there almost needs to be a 0. Address mass and scale, because it's not been done adequately.
Okay.
We can't worry about internal paths to better connected parking spaces until we get the mass and scale right. So.
Yeah, I agree with what Stacy's saying, but I do think that it's just so awkward that there is no connection from the parking through that space they have in the middle, which could be enhanced a bit, make it actually a space you could use for something. Imagine you live in the front, you park back here and you got 5 bags of groceries. You know, you're gonna make 5 trips all the way around the building. That's just wrong, I think. I think there needs to be that connection, more of an internal connection between this whole complex. Just doors on the south and doors on the north.
So is that, are you saying that number 2, the condition here is inadequate?
I think that would work. Yeah, there needs to be some kind of connection through there.
Well, it'd be
Maybe
too,
when you articulate the buildings, that might just show up, you know, it might just work out fine to have, you know, a gap or something to connect the townhouses with the front units. That makes sense?
Who else?
I agree with what Kieran and Stacy and Bob are all saying wholeheartedly. I don't have any major new conditions to add. I would like to add a couple of the things that I had on the last application about labeling labeling exterior materials and providing 3D views, but those are minor.
Okay.
Don't have anything substantial to add.
Lisa?
Well, the streetscape profile,
Yes.
that helps.
And depending on the direction that they go with the parking, under parking design, C2, like minimize the surface area paving and consider using materials that blend with the natural colors, textures of the region. Consider modular pavers, gravel, grasscrete, and textured colored or colored concrete. And it says when large parking lots are necessary, which that's what this looks like, consider dividing it into smaller components. And it's the condition or the design guidelines give you some options there.
C2.
So if there was a gap between the building and the walkway, that would not present an opportunity for a landscape area to break up.
Yeah.
Or differentiate where you drive into. The
Yeah,
garage
are
versus
any
the
of these sidewalks or this parking apron heated at all?
No, it's currently proposed.
I was just thinking if you're wheelchair from the front entrance, a week like this can be kind of difficult.
Okay. Just want to ask, well, applies to everyone, AC 13. The open spaces, as Elisa brought up last time, but this is at the rear of a building. To me, I'm just going to throw this out there for any further comment. I guess I'm okay with that, although it's so important if on any building, on this building to, other than a pathway and maybe a little wider area there to have some landscaping stuff to let it rest, unless somebody else wants to jump on open space.
Well, when you look at the buildings around it, you know, they're Boomerang that's right behind. I mean, it does have garages, but it also has entries and that sort of thing. So it is front of the building, a front building. And I think, yes, right now, the building that's there, this is the backyard and the back parking is all there. But I think we can do better. I think we could come up with a more, this is the front, now a front yard. Let's make it feel more like that within the articulated entries that we talked about, some connection to the other buildings. I think would help a lot.
Okay. So I'm only gonna ask one other question, just it might help give direction to the applicant. The good news about this is the 40-foot area is to the back, the rear of this whole property. The bad news is unless they have followed number 1 on setbacks and stepping down on 3, well, Bob can see this. I said, okay, maybe the center is 40 feet, but it meets, unless they come up with a way to step down to the alley in the back, maybe those, if they were lower, they wouldn't have to step down much. And so we could either make condition out of that or just let them come back with that.
I'm lost, what you just said.
Oh. Only the middle building would be 40 feet and they'd redesign the 2 side buildings to be lower and it would help with the step down and step back automatically. And I'm just asking the question of the board. I'm not even proposing as a condition, but
bringing it for discussion. I think that's a good direction.
Because this looks like the row houses anyway. I'm listening to everybody, including the public. And just taking down the two outside buildings there, 8 feet might do it without wall plane change, maybe. I don't know. Because they'd be lower.
I mean, I suppose as long as that's not a promise, that if they do that, then the project's gonna pass without us seeing it. I mean, I have all the imagination of a department store mannequin, so I really need to see it.
Male or female mannequin?
Does it matter?
I don't know. Okay, all right, I'll tell you what, let's not make it a condition. I mean, we got lots of conditions here. I mean, there's 9 conditions. They've heard some discussion of this anyway, and if somehow they incorporate that, then Karen and I would agree. We won't make it a,
I don't think we need to tell them how to do it, but number one, provide more variety and setback.
okay,
height,
but
color,
this
texture.
word setback, we're not gonna go through this again. We're not even gonna hear it. I mean, we're gonna have to continue it. If setback just means a balcony or something, it means a change of wall plane by definition for everyone in town, and we're not gonna change it. So very respectfully, I was thinking about adding the word, but we're not gonna add the word wall plane. So we got 9 conditions as written by staff. You want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Bob says he's got this.
Oh, we want to do March for this?
Oh,
Mhm.
okay, well, I'm gonna reach out to the applicant on this one too. I mean, I don't think we're gonna get all of them in next month, but is this one you feel like, oh, I can wave the wand and be done in 2.5 weeks? That's all you have, about 2.5 weeks
Right.
with what you've already committed to on number 1. And we're gonna write down on this one, whatever month you tell us.
We'd really like to confer with our client on it, but,
I mean, I think the intent was that we were going to bring them all in February, so I guess that's, if
yeah.
you're saying that you can't.
Well, I don't think the last one's gonna get done in February. There's gonna be so much more work than this. But
That was the intent, so I'm just.
yeah,
Yeah.
well,
so-
you gotta have confidence if you can get the work done.
Right. and
I
that's
I know
one
you're
of the-
listening to the client, you're taking direction from the client, but
Yeah, we just have to have some internal discussions, but yes, we intend to have it back here, so.
in 2.5 weeks, okay. So this one's gonna be February. Bob?
Got it, hang on. All right. I move to continue to the February 21st, 2024 HARC meeting, the application for the preliminary large-scale new construction for the tower house townhouses located at 650, 654 West Colorado Avenue, based on the staff memo dated January 17th, 2024, with the following condition: 1 through 9 as stated. This motion is based on evidence and testimony provided at a public hearing held on January 17th. With notice of such hearing provided as required by the Telluride Land Use Code.
Here, one second.
May I offer 2 friendly amendments?
Absolutely.
Condition number 10, clearly label the exterior materials on the elevations and material sheets per land use code section 7-207I and 7-207G.
I agree with that.
I accept that.
May I offer another friendly amendment?
Yes, sir.
Friendly amendment number 11. In lieu of physical scale models, provide 3D views of the project showing existing and proposed neighboring context per land use code section 7-205I.
Agree with that.
I accept that as well.
Like one for parking.
You want to make one friendly?
Yeah, friendly amendment for the parking I was bringing up. So parking design, C2, minimize the surface area of paving and consider using materials that blend with the natural colors and textures of the region. Consider modular pavers, gravel, grasscrete, and textured or colored concrete.
I agree with that.
I agree with that as well.
Streetscape,
Yep, and streetscape.
you want to add
Yeah, I didn't want to add a friendly
amendment?
amendment, yes.
Have at it.
That the applicant should add a streetscape showing the the south facade. And how it relates to the context.
That's actually, I don't, what are we gonna reference for?
You could just,
It's a procedural thing.
it's a
Land use
land use
code.
code.
Yeah.
Oh, but-
For the land use, just say for the land use code. We don't even have to chapter and verse. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, Piper, did you get that all right? Great. We good?
Yeah.
Up. Yes.
Stacy, yes.
Matt, yes.
Yes.
Bob, yes.
Yeah. Our next public hearing item is,
Take a quick break.
okay. About a 3-minute bio.
That's-
Okay, we'll resume the HARC meeting. We are on the third. Where are we? On the third?
Yes.
Yeah, third of, for Canyonlands East, continuation from December 13th. It's consideration of small scale application for new construction. Canyonlands East outside of the THLD that will contain 2,000 square foot or more floor area, but not more than 5,000 square foot per land use code 7203 B2 B1. It's lot 3, block 1, Canyonlands subdivision. I'll tell you right, according to the plat book, page 168, address is determined on West Colorado. It's accommodations 2 zone district. The owner is Town of Telluride, applicant Norris Design, and staff member Jana Wenzel.
Okay, thank you. This is the Canyonlands East Building Project, moving west on Colorado Avenue. This site is located on the south side of Colorado Avenue, adjacent to Clark's Market. It's in the Accommodations 2 Zone District and the Accommodations Treatment Area. The site is currently vacant and is used now for parking, storage, and staging. As I mentioned, moving a little bit west on Colorado Avenue, away from Tomboy Street. In between the two sites is a privately owned duplex, and now we're on the small scale east project. This is a small scale application because it contains less than 5,000 square feet. And this is the second formal HARC review, as it was continued from the December 13th HARC meeting with 15 conditions, which I will go through. Condition number 1 was to provide a landscape plan for species and quantities of plants, which has been provided on sheet LS 100. Condition number 2 was to restudy the parking plan and clearly identify and number each parking space, which has been provided. It shows the number of on-site parking spaces with land use code compliant dimensions. Condition number 3 was to restudy the placement of the rear stairs, which have been reoriented to be parallel with the building. Previously, they were perpendicular to the building and added to the mass and scale. And now they're aligned parallel with the building. Condition number 4 was to select a stone veneer that appears to be a native type stone. Again, the applicants have brought a sample to show you. Condition number 5 is to provide a cut sheet of proposed light fixtures that are consistent with the exterior lighting standards. The types of lighting fixtures proposed are appropriate with the lighting standards. Condition number 6 was to provide a complete exterior lighting plan. The exterior lighting plan has been provided, and staff has a couple of new proposed conditions about the number and placement of fixtures, which I'll talk about in a moment. Condition number 7 is, once again, final approval of the application is contingent on the preliminary PUD and subdivision. And that will remain as well until those are approved. Condition number 8 is to revise the deck and stair post details. The deck and stair rails have been revised to a solid panel, which appears to be metal. Staff has a couple of new conditions about the railings as well. Condition number 9 is to increase the scale of the entry porch to be more in scale with the overall building and provide stepping down to the street. The scale of the front entry porch has been increased in width and depth, and the roof revised to a shed, which provides a front porch more in scale with the overall building. Condition number 10 was to adjust window proportions and size to be more traditional and reduce the number of windows on the eastern elevation. Some of the windows have been reduced in size. Others have been revised to be paired patio doors. It's not clear if the overall amount of glazing on the east elevation has been reduced, so HARC may want to discuss this condition specifically. Condition number 11 was to consider increasing the front setback to allow for more mature trees and landscaping. The front setback has not been increased. The landscaping plan is provided on sheet LS 100 as mentioned. Condition number 12 was to reduce or break up the peak ridge line. The primary ridge line has not been reduced in length. It measures 60 feet. HARC should discuss this condition and how it could be addressed with the applicants. Condition number 13 was to comply with 2/3 light doors. All the entry doors have been revised to 2/3 light. However, a new condition has been added about the sliding doors also complying. Condition 14 is to consider moving the trash container, which has been moved to the southwest corner of the property. Condition number 15 was provide height and materials details of the west wall, and we still need more information on that wall. The conditions I've just mentioned that HARC needs to address and discuss further with the applicants are number 10, the windows and glazing on the east side, number 11, the front setback, and number 12, the length of roof ridge line. And then the new conditions staff proposed are to reduce the number of fixtures at the retaining wall along the driveway and ensure that they are installed as step lights. There appear to be 6 fixtures installed on the retaining wall. The exterior site lighting guidelines discourage lighting the same area with more than 1 fixture. If this is accurate and they're not overlapping, then it may be adequate. It appears to be too many. Condition number 2 is to revise the sconces in the dormers on the east facade to be step lights, moved lower on the wall. Again, the fixture is a step light, but it should be lower to the floor. Condition number 3 is to provide a detail of the deck and stair railing. And condition number 4 is to revise the front porch railing to be more traditional. It's proposed as metal panels. Condition number 5 is to revise the sliding doors at the Juliet balconies to be no more than 2/3 light. Condition 6 is to label the height of the retaining wall on the west side of the drive. And condition 7 is, again, no approval is contingent upon approval of the PUD and subdivision. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Donna?
Jonna, this is something that just sort of occurred to me looking at the guidelines. I don't know if, I know we've been a little more lenient on flat roofs in certain larger buildings. I know that the guidelines here say that flat roofs are generally inappropriate. I'm just wondering if there's been any conversations with you and the applicant. This probably applies to the other buildings more so than this one, about small uses of flat roofs more in the center of the structure, or some way to help them out with the massing of the roofs.
It's not been a discussion that I've been part of.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, let's hear from the applicant.
Hey, good evening. So, again, you can see we've listed out our conditions that were issued to us at the December meeting. And we've highlighted the few that I believe Jonna just mentioned as well, to discuss some of the points that we're still working through and would like to discuss with the committee tonight. On our site plan, since we saw you last, is that ours? We've increased the landscaping in the right of way substantially. We have realigned the sidewalk, as I was mentioning on our site visit today, so that there is a 6-foot portion coming directly from the west at Clark's Market into the street setback, or sorry, the street sidewalk. So providing a more direct route for pedestrians along there. We have added some additional landscape along the southern property line, adjacent to our bike racks. As was mentioned, we relocated our trash enclosure to the western property line, so it's no longer viewed from Colorado Avenue as you look into our neighborhood here. And then we've identified some existing trees to remain, which are circled as opposed to the wavier tree outline. So it's the tree that's John's pointing to right there in front of Canyonlands East will be maintained. And that's really the only tree along the Colorado Avenue frontage that's existing right now. There are a few trees, as you know, we looked at today on site that are in the rear, and those will be removed, but they will be replaced with the trees to the west there. And then I also just wanted to talk quickly about the setback on Canyonlands East to the Colorado Avenue sidewalk. Currently, we're set back. Obviously, we're along a curve in the road there, so it varies. The average setback is approximately 25 feet. And as I mentioned earlier, Mendota, and that's to the primary structure. And as I mentioned earlier, Mendota is about 18 feet to the primary structure. So we feel we're providing a consistent streetscape along Colorado Avenue with that setback.
Yep, and I can jump in now with the architecture side. Yeah, so one of the comments that we had was, increasing the deck a little bit to add a little bit more proportion to the front of the building. And so we did that. And just to add on to the comments about the stepping back, to me, what I understood when you guys gave us the feedback was, it was really about the landscaping and adding more trees. And so I think we made a good effort to add more trees into that space. And it is one of the buildings that has one of the larger step backs out of the rest of the development. Then when we look at the east elevation, it also felt like there's a little bit of hesitation on this facade because of the uniform kind of repetitive nature of this, but wanting to break it up and create some diversity in the window sizes. And so one of the things that we did was we moved the balcony back on the upper level, and then this kind of adds a little bit more symmetry to the upper roof. And we swapped out some of the double windows to single windows, and we swapped the other double windows to Juliet balconies. Because another comment was about having people using the other side of the building's balcony and not really having their own private outdoor space. And so we wanted to create a little bit of that on this side of the building. And I will jump into the 3D to kind of take you through some of that. We have started making some of the updates that Jonna had mentioned, but since it wasn't in your packet, we didn't want to show you that. But the lighting, the doors and things like that, we're already working on addressing. And I did want to show you this side of the building because one of the comments was making those railings a little bit more solid. So we kind of have a hybrid cable rail mixed with a solid panel rail that would also be like a powder coated metal. And so that helps add a little bit of privacy to those balconies and windows as you go down the balcony. And we rotated the stairs and relocated the trash and created a trash enclosure at the other end of the drive, the parking area. And then we'll go back over here. Ridge length came up, but again, that was something I felt you guys were on the fence about, that this style of architecture lends itself to have a longer ridge length. And so we didn't want to mess up that proportion because we did still feel like that was appropriate. So yeah, and let me turn the trees back on because obviously that's a huge part of this. One second. So yeah, so we did want to add more trees in that front yard, and we're still exploring making that a little more dense, but yeah, so that's the other thing that we did do was there was a lot of concern about this walkway along the side of the building. And so we did actually remove that. So there's no issues with snow. It kind of makes this a little less dense at the front walkway as well. But we did also need to maintain this as an ADA ramp, which is another reason why we have that sidewalk going the way it does. We need that length to be able to create that accessibility. So
yeah, and I did want to just point out too, that we have ADA parking spaces that will be located along Colorado Avenue.
Yeah, over in this area. So, so yeah, those are our updates. Are there any questions?
Yeah, how far out do those balconies on the east elevation protrude out?
They don't. They're just Juliet, so it's really just a railing.
All right, it just, in our packet, it just looks like they come out quite a bit. Just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Yeah, they were pretty wide. This is slightly revised, so I apologize for that being a little bit different, but this is a narrower railing, so it kind of blends into that 2/3 light and kind of looks like the bottom panel of the door.
And I have a question too. On your roof plan sheet G2051, it looks like your roof edge with the eave on the northeast corner goes beyond your property line. It's a statement, more than a question.
That's the existing property line, I think, that you're looking at, as opposed to the proposed property line, which it's outside of.
Okay, so maybe you should guys identify your existing property lines new property lines and in general, your property lines on your drawings.
Okay.
It makes it very difficult to read through the package.
Yeah, we can,
Confusing.
we can label all the instances. We do have a few drawings that have those, but we will add that to
We'll
all
make
the,
sure it's
all
all
the,
of them,
yeah.
Yeah,
if it's missing from any.
yeah.
Okay. Sure.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank-
Matt?
So what I'm just hearing is that we're seeing a different model than we have in the drawings. Is there a way for you to show us what you presented in the
Yeah,
application?
It's really just the railing that's different. That's the only difference.
Okay.
It's not anything major.
Gotcha.
But like I say, I apologize for that.
And another question, and thanks for making, this one came the furthest of all from 15 to 7 conditions with staff suggesting we look at 3 others. But so that hip, if you could go to the east elevation on the ridge line, the 60 ridge line, and with the 2 dormers and the hip roof you added on the
Let me go to the point.
south end. Is that not a possibility to do? I'm not sure where the board sits this on the north end.
Adding a second hip to the north,
Yeah, to break up. What's that ridge line now that you broke it up?
just under 60 feet is the length. of
It's
that.
right under 60. Well, I'm just asking if it's a possibility in case it comes up and then you can't talk to us.
Well, yeah, anything's possible, but I think what we understood was the direction of this was to keep it very simple and
Yeah.
and traditional, and that's what we tried to do. So.
Okay,
um,
probably. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Other questions?
I have a few. I'd like you guys to comment. I'm just looking at the on the western side with the walkways, the decks, the stairs, the columns. All of those elements to me look really thin. You know, it looks like it's 5.5, 6 inch concrete deck. 6 by 6 columns that are spaced. The spacing is 27 something feet apart. I don't see how the stairs and the landings are supported. So I guess my assumption is that you guys haven't gotten far enough into the engineering of that, but I'm trying to understand, are you truly proposing that these are all the assemblies that are this thin?
No, you're right. So we haven't went through engineering on this yet. We wanted to get the design kind of approved.
Okay.
So you're right. We should thicken those up to feel a little more realistic. We are planning like a cantilever to avoid having any vertical elements on the stairs just for safety with vehicles. And we most likely need to add more columns that are a little beefier than that. But yes,
Thank
you're
you.
right. That needs to be thickened up.
Another question I have is kind of somewhat related to Mark's. Looking at the loft plan and the elevations, it looks like the latter quarter of the roof on the southern side doesn't have living space in it. And
Yeah, those are very schematic, so there would be living space in there. But yeah, we didn't get that updated in the plans, but we're working through those layouts now.
okay, so you are intending to occupy all of the gable form with living space.
Correct.
Okay, other questions?
So all the way back to the shed roof. You're talking
On the
The
front,
hip.
On the south?
in the back. That last, there's 2 units that have lofts, and then the third one, you're saying that would have a loft as well.
right, that's correct. There would be lofted units in the upper level. There's 2 of them.
At the south end, the 2 at the south end.
They span the distance of the. So this,
60-foot ridge.
they're located inside this roof area.
Okay. Just want to understand it. Got it.
Else? Okay, let's hear from the public on this project. If you're out there electronically, please raise your hand. Or we'll start electronically, and then if somebody's in the room wants to come to this project before we get to the last item tonight, then thank you for questions. Sherry Harvey has her hand up. Welcome back.
Hi, it's me again, Sherry. I wanted to go a little bit further into the accommodations guidelines, right to policy number 23, mass and scale. And the second paragraph says, the mass and scale of buildings in Telluride are among the greatest influences for compatible construction in the community. The height, width, and depth of new buildings should be compatible with historic buildings, with those structures that are adjacent to a project. The scale of a building should relate to its lot size and placement on a lot. And then it goes on about talking about the roof forms and all the other elements of the building. I feel that this project has just moved around a few elements, but it is basically the same building that we saw in December. So policy 23, mass and scale, A was building sizes appear to be similar in scale to those found traditionally in town. 23A1 says the western edge of the approach in town building should appear similar in scale. 23D says building heights on larger projects should be a variety, including some 1- and 2-story elements at the sidewalk and alley edges. I don't see how this is compliant without stepping back the third level. When I made a reference to the boarding house at Alta Lakes, that's got a lot of charm because it's environment and it's setting. This is crammed in there and literally just filling up space. If it were scaled down 75%, then maybe it could start to comply with some of these guidelines in policy 23. Also in policy 23I, larger building may be divided into parcels that reflect the traditional scale of construction. And 23J, roofs should be similar in scale to those used historically on comparable buildings. And it talks about the ridge length. And from my memory on discussions with the board, when an applicant purposefully didn't comply with conditions, we didn't grant them the opportunity to come back in the next meeting. I mean, as Marcus stated, you are taking away time other applications who are ready in the queue could be using. And we in town are paying for these drawings. So I would hope that they would use a little bit more imagination and follow conditions that the board has carefully spent time on. And I think, was there another one? 26B, the length of the roof ridge. I mean, you guys know all these, but I just thought I should state them because they're there. Thanks for listening. Those are my comments.
Okay, thank you. Anybody in the audience on this project? If not, applicant can make a rebuttal and then we'll deliberate.
Yeah, all I would say is we felt like we kind of heard everything you guys had said in the last meeting about proportion and scale, and we did our best to stick to that. And if we missed the mark on some of that, then we'd love to know where that miss was. So appreciate it.
Okay, begin deliberations. I just remind everybody that in addition to those 7, staff asked us to at least discuss 10, 11, and 12, which we already kind of about. And I would throw out there that I'd like to hear what the rest of the board says, but on 23D that Jerry brought up, 1- and 2-story elements. It's really a part of every one of these projects so far that's going to have to be changed. But if there was any project that I think it has some unique character and the guidelines might allow a boarding house look or anything without the 1- and 2-story element, it might be this one, but I'll be really anxious to hear what everybody has to say. So we have 1 through 7, we have 10, 11, 12 to start with, and anything else you would like to bring up.
I can start. I have something I haven't brought up before, but I'm curious what the board feels about the fact that this building doesn't really ground itself except for the northern side, that we're open on 2 sides to the parking. Seems to me that this project would benefit by bringing these walls, surrounding walls, to the ground, whether or not, I'm not exactly saying they should be the same siding. but between a solid opaque wall and potentially a lattice or an open wall. Mendota has got an example of like wire mesh, for instance. The more I look at this building, it seems odd to me that it's trying to replicate a larger version of a boarding house or Elks, but there's really nothing grounding it to the landscape. So I feel that it would be nice to infill or to bring all of these walls to the ground, except for obviously the entryway to the garage.
Is there a risk there that we're increasing the
Yes.
mass at the
Scale
pedestrian level?
I think there is. That's why I'm I want to hear what everybody else.
Could
has
you
to say about it.
zoom in on let's say the west elevation, maybe along that long? Or remove the trees, and we can look at east and west. That's where Matt's talking about right there.
So there's precedent in second here. The third paragraph of AC 23, the first sentence says building elements such as roof forms, openings, projections, additions, exterior wall form, and foundations should be of similar sizes to found historically in the community and this treatment area. So there's effectively a lack of a foundation here. Although your model is showing this low retaining wall, which I don't believe shows up in the drawings, does it?
It should be in.
Does not show up on my drawings.
It's the narrower space. If you look on the other side, it's much taller.
I think it's just simply that the elevation's cut back further.
They're cut back.
Can we look at the west elevation? Same issue.
There's also a precedent in AC 20A parking that says screen parking area from view from the public right away with site features such as plantings, fences, and walls.
Well, number one is even more relevant. For structured parking, provide decorative screens or develop, well, that's a whole other thing. Developing rooms in front of the parking, but
Screen the park.
there's a guideline that speaks to screening. Could be fairly transparent or perforated or.
Yeah, not opaque necessarily.
That adds to the wall plane, but then again,
But if the wall plane is stepped either in or out.
Yeah.
Then it's a change in wall plane.
that's not one of the current conditions.
No. It just, the more I look at this, it just seems so odd that it just hovers.
But that would have to go with a change in wall plane then?
I don't necessarily say that we
Grading or.
we dictate that everywhere, but I mean, if they just brought this, I mean, the guidelines say you can't bring the siding to the ground, so. I think they would have to come up with some creative ideas.
Okay. Good
We're
point.
talking about bringing it, say, to the columns on this side, because that's the
Yeah.
driveway. Bring it to the columns or edge of the.
Yeah, and whether
parking spaces.
they're sort of open screens like Mendota or lattice or solid walls, maybe a combination of these would be appropriate to break up the mass and scale.
I think it would help.
And certainly lattice work would not enhance mass and scale as much as the solid area is. Okay. Good point.
I do just quickly, Mark, want to discuss the item you brought up about the possibility of having a low shed roof at the front, similar at the north, similar to how it is at the south. I understand where you're coming from with that. It would reduce mass and scale at the north, adjacent to Colorado Avenue.
Can you go back to that?
But I don't think I'd be in favor of going that direction.
Me either.
I've talked myself out of it.
Okay. But I think part of the reason for that, correct me if I'm wrong, is this concern over ridge length.
Yeah.
And because Sherry brought it up, where are we at? 23J. It talks about in commercial and warehouse settings. Now, this isn't a warehouse setting, but it's pretty proximate to Clark's. Institutionally, the high school's across the street and there's a hotel across the street, right? So it's pretty commercial. Typical length was 50 to 75. Well, we're in that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think,
I
for
think
me,
we're-
the ridge line, I've moved on from the ridge line.
Me too. But I just saying, Jonna suggested that we talk about 10, 11, and 12. So can we cross off 12, the ridge line?
I can.
Okay.
Fine with me.
All right,
Yeah.
and then the windows and the front setback. I mean, I have to say that the way I've seen this landscape and it sets back further, I thought they did the best job of any building on front setbacks, and it's only 34 foot high, but am I a lame duck?
I still feel that all of these buildings at Front Colorado could benefit by pushing them farther back. Still gonna advocate for that.
Straw poll?
I'm with you, Mark. I'm more in line with what you were saying.
Okay, but who wants further setback? One? Sorry?
I'm okay with it as it is. We already pushed it back once and so did P&Z.
I'm okay with it.
Okay, I guess we lost. Okay, sorry, split. Okay, windows, this is it, I think.
I appreciate what they did with the windows and the Juliet balconies. I think it's much more composed.
I think the front elevation, vast improvement.
I agree.
And thanks for listening with adding that larger canopy. Okay,
What do you guys feel about beefing up the scale of the structural elements and the spacing and sort of making those more real?
Yeah.
too spindly.
Yes,
I don't think you're gonna stand that far
27 feet. Yeah.
with
It's-
2x6.
Okay,
Also, that roof doesn't have a beam, supporting it.
Does it need to be conditioned though, or is it's just going to have to happen?
I think it could be in the final hearing, but if you want to make it a condition, we can. They've heard us. And when we had this dialogue before, every time they said, yes, we're going to do that and make it look a little bit more beefy.
I
So, just a point of clarification here, is a small scale, this is it if we approve.
Oh.
though.
Well,
These
we're not
things have to
approving
be-
tonight, I don't think. Are we?
Just putting that out there.
But thank you for saying that because then I think we should add it as a condition. in
Well,
case-
let me ask the question, what have we often, I mean, let's read through the conditions, right? It's fixtures, it's some details from deck railing, 2/3 light at the doors, which at the Julia balconies, which I think they've done, label of the height of retaining wall. I mean, we've approved projects with more than this,
I would
And if
like
you-
to see it again.
Well,
but what are they gonna do between now and
well,
then?
1 and 7, I would have
Change some light fixtures? I mean,
Meet the 9 conditions plus or 7 conditions plus whatever.
7 plus the screen and parking. That's
okay, I just,
it's screened with lattice work. I mean, John and I will see it and we know what your intent is. I mean, that's the only one we haven't seen that's on here that's like, okay, put a different railing on, whatever. I mean, but do we want to see it for the type of lattice work and
So if I could just, and maybe it was something we should have asked John at the time, but it seems like giving us the option to, I mean, we always have that option, but the way it was written was based on number 12, and specifically the condition number 12 with the ridge line. If that was gonna be broken up, then yeah, maybe we should see it again. I think you're saying ridge line is okay. They really just don't see a reason to continue it for the sake of continuing it.
well, we got lattice work we'd like to see, or someone like to see in it, and John and I would see it. If you trust us with that, prove it, and of course the sconces and,
I think in the interest of consistency, I would be in favor of approving it, but because we've approved other projects with similar conditions. We're not, if we're all in agreement on the ridge line, we're really not hammering away at massive scaling,
right, we're done.
so.
Yes.
Would you like to make the motion? Okay.
I move to approve the application for the final small-scale new construction for Canyonlands East Building, Lot 3, Block 1, Canyonland subdivision based on the state memo dated January 17th, 2024, with the following conditions 1 through 7 is noted. This motion is based on evidence and testimony provided at a public hearing held on January 17th, 2024. The notice of such hearings provided as required by the land use code. Revised plans incorporating the conditions of approval shall be submitted within 60 days of this approval, or this approval becomes null and void. Unless otherwise indicated, the revised drawing submitted, the certificate of appropriateness must be complete depth with any changes to the drawings clouded and labeled. Any changes to the drawings beyond the conditions of approval may result in more than one submittal being required.
I'll second that.
Bob, I have 4 friendly amendments I'd like to bring to you individually.
Okay.
Number 8, on the east side of the covered parking and flanking the west side entrance to the covered parking, provide a substantial connection of the walls above to the ground per AC 23, third paragraph, first sentence, and AC 28.
That's,
Yes.
I agree with that.
I'll accept that.
Friendly amendment number 9. Revise the sizing and placement of structural components such as columns, beams, deck slabs, stairs, and landings to be similar in scale to those used historically per AC 28B.
Yes, agree with that.
I accept it.
Friendly amendment 10. Clearly label the exterior materials on the elevations and materials sheet per land use code 7-207I and 7-207G.
Agree with that.
Yeah, I accept it.
And then one more. Is this 11?
Yep.
11.
Due to the combined scale of these 4 concurrent applications reaching 37,320 square feet, provide 3D views of the project showing existing and proposed neighboring context.
Accept that.
Sure. I accept that.
Can I have another friendly amendment we already discussed, but didn't have it on this
Go
list?
for it.
Where's the screening?
You
Reference?
mentioned it.
I already mentioned that one.
What number is that?
It's AC 20A.
No, I mean, it's 8. Connection to the walls above the ground. Okay.
Yes.
Well, I didn't hear the word screening, so, but that, they know what that means. So.
We good?
Kieran,
Keenan, yes. Stacy, yes.
Matt, yes.
Mark, yes? It's approved. Thank you. And trust me, I think we understand these additional ones clearly, and yeah, the intent of the board will be kept up. Final review. Okay, our last project of the evening. You all want to go home now?
Can we?
Not you. Okay. See. Yep. Okay, is the Canyonlands Northwest with the story poles. It's a consideration of a large-scale application, Canyonlands Northwest, for a new construction inside of the THLD will contain more than 5,000 square foot of floor area per land use code 7203B2A1. It's lot 3, block 1, Canyonlands subdivision, town of Telluride, according to plat book 1, page 168. Address is to be determined. Zone districts accommodations 2, owner town of Telluride, and the applicant, Norris Design, staff member, Jonna Wenzel.
Hey, thank you. So we did a site walk for this project as well this afternoon, and I'll just ask you again if you think that the story poles adequately represented the mass and scale.
With some,
With the corrections they noted.
I'll make one comment, and I hope this doesn't sound ticky-tacky. In the winter, when there's snow everywhere, white PVC pipe isn't maybe the best.
Against a white snowy sky?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a thought.
You believe you gained an impression of the mass
Yeah.
and scale
Yes.
that's fairly accurate.
Told the story.
Yes, okay, great. That's wonderful. Well, we also received public comment on this project specifically from John Roth. Have you all had a chance to review his comments?
yes.
Okay, moving on. This is the preliminary large-scale review, HARC's first formal review of this application and the first step in a 2-step review process, preliminary and final. 2 work sessions have been held on this project, one in October and one in December. This project occupies the same site as the one we just discussed, the Canyonlands East project. This one is at the northwest corner of the property. This project is directly adjacent to Clark's Market in the village leasehold on the south side of Colorado Avenue. The proposal is to build a new multifamily affordable housing structure on the site. It's situated at the northwest corner of the lot with parking below and behind the building, with vehicular access from Colorado Avenue. Staff has proposed 8 conditions and recommends that the application be continued based on those relating to mass and scale. So, condition number 1 was to provide stepping down on the north and south facades. And condition number 2 is to provide 1 and 2-story elements at the property edges. First of all, I want to acknowledge the efforts already made to provide stepping down towards Colorado Avenue on the east and west ends of the building. The 1-story mass proposed at the northeast corner, which is certainly a step in the right direction. And these revisions are creating greater compliance with the guidelines. However, on the north facade, the northwest corner is still essentially 3 stories from the sidewalk, which I've shown here from the west elevation. The center gable is a vertical 4 stories, as we see from the north elevation, with no stepping down. And likewise, the south facade has been provided some relief with the decks, but the decks don't break down the mass or provide stepping down to the south. Condition number 3 is to ensure that the front porches do not cross the property line. This came up on the Tower House site, and the applicants complied with this condition. The applicants in this case have expressed their desire to seek a revocable encroachment permit to allow the porches to remain in the right-of-way. Town council approves revocable encroachment permits and may approve this one. However, neither HARC nor P&Z nor staff could or would approve an encroachment over a building or property line. So right now, this condition is included until such time as an REP is requested. If they request the REP and are granted it, this condition would go away. If they decide to move the building onto the property, then this condition would go away as well. But I'm saying that none of us here can approve this situation. Condition number 4 is to provide height and material details of the retaining wall on the west side of driveway. This was a similar condition on the Canyonlands East project. Condition number 5 is to provide a detail of the trash enclosure. Condition number 6 is to simplify the roof form. The roof form is complex, mostly gables, which presumably serve to break up the mass, and is also the direction that the designers have been given. But the forms could be simplified, perhaps through the use of shed roofs in places, which would still break up the mass and provide the stepping down mentioned in conditions 1 and 2. Condition number 7 is to ensure that all exterior doors, including patio doors, are no more than 2/3 light. And 8 is the same as all the others, that final approval of the application is contingent on the approval of the preliminary PUD and subdivision. Same question about possible dates for continuation, either February 21st or March 20th. I want to mention that John has let me know that he's brought some ideas on how to better meet the conditions and guidelines that I've highlighted in the memo, which he'd like to share with you tonight. I will remind the board and the applicants that anything that's shared tonight that was not in the packet should not be part of the motion. Your conditions should be based solely on what is provided to you in the packet. John might provide some examples of how they maybe could meet those conditions at the next review. But also this is not a work session, so please remember to stick to the public hearing process, no dialogue, redesigning the project for them, et cetera, you know the rules. But he did offer to provide some alternatives for you to look at. But I wanted to just remind everyone that your motion needs to be based solely on the packet provided. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Yeah, do we have to see the new material?
You do not.
My preference would be not to, since it's not in the packet. That's just really gonna confuse the process.
It may. The recommendation that I've given them is that they might show you an alternative to see if that's the direction you're thinking. But if you'd rather not see it, that's your
I'd-
prerogative as well.
I'd rather, with full transparency, take the gamble of seeing a sneak peek. Because at least for me, it might determine whether I vote for March. If I think that there's really even something that, oh, wow, that could work.
Okay.
But if it's not in close, I'm just gonna say I would vote for March no matter what.
It wouldn't have to be on each element. I've advised them things like lighting and railings and stuff you don't need to see right
Oh, no.
now.
Do mass and scale
But
it.
mass and scale, perhaps, it's up to you. You can discuss amongst
Well,
yourselves.
I'll just ask, could anybody else like to see the ideas?
Could I offer up that they present the packet in their presentation and then make a clean break and then show us
Yes.
what
that's-
they're working on?
Segregated in
Maybe
one
the way for we.
I think that's what John had
Okay.
proposed.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
All right, let's hear from the applicant.
Right.
Yeah, and now that you came to us, yeah, essentially that was the plan all along, was just to show you at the end if you wanted to see it. If not, we can just omit it from the presentation, but we did take Jonna's comments seriously and wanted to address some of them, but let me, sorry, my computer crashed. I need to rejoin. the
Oh,
meeting.
no.
Just one moment, sorry.
I mean, I could probably just talk a little bit about the site plan, if you'd like, while you're working on that.
Go ahead.
So I don't have too much to add, other than, of course, we have increased our landscaping quite a bit along the frontage of this building, and part of that was due to, some reworking of the utilities in that area. So that's how we were able to add in more trees there. So while we may not have pushed the building back further, we did, rework the site plan to make it so that we could provide more dense landscaping, following your request. And the overall setback, just since I've been doing this on all the buildings, just to keep it consistent, is an average of 25 feet. Again, so very similar to the average setback on Canyonlands East. So we are keeping that consistent streetscape along the Canyonlands building. And we didn't really talk too much about, if you want to go back to the site plan for a minute, because it was kind of more related to the Canyonlands Northwest building, but we do have that pedestrian access. You can see the striping going through the parking area, but we walked that earlier today. So we removed that gate and provided some hardscape area along the southern property line to facilitate movement through the site, should, the adjacent property owner wish to provide a public access easement as well, which, that's gonna go to P and Z. I just wanted to mention that we are looking at providing that access through along the Canyonlands Northwest building, because we did remove it on the Canyonlands East building, on the east side of the east building. So those are our major site plan revisions. And then we can talk about architecture.
Yeah, and so again, we listed out conditions, and then these were the ones that we wanted to focus on. So this is kind of before and after from the original that you guys saw on the south side. I know one of the comments was, because we were working so much on the front, that this might be a spot where it wasn't needing to be as articulated. But what we wanted to do was go ahead and articulate the corners and kind of erode the corners with the balconies instead of them being kind of tacked onto the facade. So we brought those out to the corners. We changed out the railings to more simple railing forms. Pulled the building out a little bit to kind of bookend those balconies, and then and I can show you better in the 3D view in a moment. But really just to kind of articulate that a lot more so it wasn't a vertical material change. And then on the front side, we went through a few options to work through the roof. One of the suggestions was to bring the roof form down. We tried multiple ways of doing that. It really just muddied up things. And so what we ended up doing was cutting the balcony itself back. And we did keep some of the roof overhang to protect the balcony. But that was kind of the initial step in working towards breaking that mass down. And yep, let me go to the 3D. So this is what's in your packet. For that breaking down of that front by pushing the balcony back and eliminating that vertical element that kind of made the building feel so tall. These corners, we eroded a little bit more as well, brought this portion of the building out further so that it helped create that break facade again, where we had materials kind of changing in plane. We agree that that is not the best way to do it. So we wanted to bring that out. And we also stepped the stone level here as well to help that feel even more individual, as a one-story element there. And then introduce a couple of roof forms with a mix of balconies that step the entire plane of the building, and kind of worked through that corner to make it feel a little bit more dimensional. And then as we go around to the back, I'll kind of show you that. Stepping where we pull these elements out, we realigned the building mass with the roof so that it aligns a lot better than it did originally. And then, like we said, we kind of wanted to rotate both sides of the corners so that we could add a little bit more dynamic movement to that elevation. So those are the major changes. A lot of the other things kind of are the evolution that we've already started based on John's comments. So I'll end it there and ask if there's questions.
Okay, questions?
At the, sorry, northwest corner, was there any reduction of height to that, to the dark blue element?
To the dark blue?
Yeah.
No. I think we did look at lowering the roof a little bit to add these windows in at the top to help bring in more light, but we didn't dramatically lower it.
Okay.
But can it be?
It's really like tight with ceiling heights, so it's not, we would lose a unit if we had to do that. We had to lower it any further.
What is your plate there on your northwest or your wall?
Believe we were at like 8 feet currently. Some of them we were at 7.5, so.
Other questions?
Could you go to a more bird's eye view looking down at this project and include Clark's and and kind of zoom out a little bit more? That's great.
Right there?
Yeah.
And how many feet proud is that front center element that's 4 stories
This
of
piece,
the back?
I believe it's about 5 feet for the balcony.
5 feet, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, but the building wall is how many feet proud of the lighter blue behind it?
Are you talking about this element?
Oh, wait a minute, no, it is, excuse me, I meant, never mind, I really meant between the pink building
Oh,
and
that one? That's
yeah.
probably our biggest step. I can get a dimension for you.
It's at least 6 feet.
Let me find a plan really quick here.
And while you're thinking about it, another question is the guidelines, which John cited, number 2, 1 and 2-story building elements. It doesn't say 1 or 2. It says 1 and 2. So I'd just like to ask you before we lose you.
Well, that's the weird part about this is we did start to implement those things, but when do you want us to be able to, when can we show you those?
Well, at the end, at the end.
Let me answer your other question. 6.5 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I said 6
Thank you
feet,
for grabbing that.
No
6
problem.
inches off. Okay,
Yes, we're good. Good eye.
my lucky guess. Okay. What are the questions?
And you do have trees here that you.
We do,
Sorry, could you put those in just to let us see,
yeah,
please?
that should help.
Like just interject my request on all of these to show the 3D views. I think it would be beneficial to see them both with landscaping and without landscaping.
We can do that.
Would you just show one more view and then we'll go to the public of, since this building of all is the closest and the most dramatic impact on the gateway to town, do you have something you could look at from the northwest? From the Clark side or on the street?
Coming down the street.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, coming down the street, like,
yeah,
view?
maybe that. That's pretty close. From that angle, just zoom in a bit or drive us down the road a minute.
yeah, we can do that.
Let's just take a drive together.
Yeah.
Go in the left lane. Okay, thanks.
You're a backseat driver.
Passing.
Some people don't like me driving. I don't
I've
know
heard
who.
that.
So. Sorry for the jumpiness there. It's a lot smoother over here.
Oh, it was the pavement.
But I can go back down and get that shot.
All right. Okay. Can you remove the trees?
Yeah, we can.
That might take 10 years to get that big.
Those are the new trees. You want me to remove all the trees? I can do that. too.
Well, okay, just for contrast. There you go. Here we go. Vertical top is down. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, no other questions? I guess I don't have any more. So, let's hear from the public.
Um,
You want to see?
would the proper protocol be to see the new why am I saying this? I
Well-
don't even want to see it.
Well, I don't know if we want the public to comment on the new, well, you know what? Why are we hiding something?
What's?
Because
what would
it's
be appropriate?
procedure.
Yeah.
Huh?
It's not normal procedure.
I know.
That's
but
why.
Sometimes, I don't know. I'd rather.
I
err
think
on-
we should have public comment and then open it up again when we see something else.
And let them comment twice.
I think let's not confuse the public by
Okay.
showing something
I
that's
agree.
not in the package.
I agree. All right.
One sec, while I said, you guys want to see the stone closer? Because I've only held it up.
You brought it?
We have it,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's shown it several times.
I just hold it up like saying a white.
Yeah.
Which light?
I walked around it, but yeah, hold it up. Let everybody see.
Yeah, I can do a show and tell and hand it to you, but it's on me.
I have a question that, so the materials is showing sort of the same palette across all the projects. Is there intention to vary the type of stone or color in between them and brick, or is it intended to all?
The original intent was to have a couple of different colors. We haven't sourced a second color, but we'd like to keep it in the same spirit of this, but a slightly different color, so it does help us break up those masses more. So we can source that and get that to you as well. So.
Okay. All right, and again, to remind the public, we're really at most important mass and scales. And you can comment on anything, but I think as a board, we'd appreciate your comments mostly on mass and scale, not the windows or whatever. So if you would, we'll start with people in the room. And they come up and just sit by John and read your name into the mic and welcome your comments. And I see a couple online coming up.
Yep.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Jim Lucarelli, and my partner Dave Fruin and I owned this property for a very long time, probably too long. And so I thought that maybe some insights might be helpful to the board on this. We had a 23-car garage designed for this project, where you entered in on the Clark's Market side of the building. At that time, HARC made us push the buildings all the way to the back of the lot because HARC demanded from us that there be an open space park on the front side of the building. They even required us to provide artwork or a statue or something. We'd never gotten that far to pick that out. But we were pushed all the way to the back of the site. We came down and we had 3 different iterations of the garage designed. One iteration was we sunk the lid of the garage all the way down so it was below existing grade. And in that design, we came up with a garage of 23 units, plus the elevator shaft, plus the boiler room, plus storage for all the units. Because all these units, you know, people in Telluride, they've got kayaks, they've got bikes, they've got 2 cars, they've got everything else. We then designed another version of just 15. Our project was a 15-unit project. So we also had that in a 15-unit project, and we also had it designed where the garage was not completely submerged. And as you see the gaps that they have in the underneath space that they have for parking in the back, there's plenty of room to have a subgradient parking lot there that might even make for more living space within the project if the garage was built. The ramps worked, everything worked. There is water on the property. There's water between 9 feet and 11 feet where they should really be going underground with parking is where they're pushing out to the front to the sidewalk and pushing out all the way to the road. That would be a perfect place to have underground parking because that area of the lot, because it's coming up so steeply, it comes up about 10 feet to the road. You know, there you could have underground parking and not be anywhere near the water table. Water studies were provided to the town upon the sale of the property, and dewatering wells exist on the property. I had the pleasure of serving on the P&Z board back in 1992, and we had T-shirts that said "parking, parking, parking," because that was, you know, the big thing. And this neighborhood is at such a deficit for parking. It's crazy. You've got the Clark's Market. I always say if my wife goes missing, probably the first place to look for her is in the Clark's parking lot. She probably went in there and never came out. You've got the high school across the street. You've got the hotel. The hotel has parking, but they charge extra to park in their garage. So all their guests park on the street in the neighborhood. Mendota is also very, very short on parking. They park out in the street. They park clean over to Pacific, and they take up a lot of the parking in the neighborhood as well. So I just thought it would be helpful to the board to say there is a realistic solution for that. I know it's outside of the purview of this board, but as chairman of your fire protection district, maybe it needs to become part of the purview of this board. Units like this really need to be dedicated to first line responders. We don't have enough housing for first line responders, doctors, nurses, law enforcement, snowplow drivers, firefighters, EMTs, and paramedics. Just a thought.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just because there's some material fact in what you stated rather than opinion, are these records on file here at this town hall?
So the original project was approved back.
HARC approval?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, we got full
Parking
HARC
garage.
approval, everything. Yep, you bet.
Okay.
And it was all engineered through Troutner in Basalt.
Okay.
Larry Yaw was our architect on the project, and all those documents were delivered to the town upon the sale of the property.
Thank you. Okay. Next, anybody else in the room? Please come up, just state your name.
Matthew Hintermeister. I live in the northeast corner unit of the Clark's Market Village leasehold building, which you can't see my unit right now because it's blocked by this building. Mr. Shambaugh was clear earlier when he said that all applicants are to be treated equally. When have you ever considered letting an applicant ignore lot lines, even just to see the design at HARC? I mean, I sat on HARC. I was a member of this board for 4 years. I don't remember anything like this ever happening. I kind of wonder, and I know this is a P&Z issue and a town council issue, but in general, you know, we seem to be wasting a lot of time looking at a project that takes property lines as a mere suggestion. And if that's the new rule in the town of Telluride, I think we should let our private property owners all know that. I was going to mention the fully engineered garage that was already proposed here. So the garage is definitely a possibility. It's not off the table. And also to say that the town and the applicant should also consider talking to the owners of those 2 townhomes to make this whole project work better together, and it would create more housing and more parking. That's never even been considered. Those owners were here at a previous meeting and admitted that they had never been contacted. So, overall, I think that, the building is just far too massive to fit on the lot, and thus it doesn't. So, mass and scale, I think it's a total failure. As far as the gateway into town, the story poles tell you everything you need to know. Some of the highest story poles are actually off the lot line, which is, I mean, I'd prefer everything be on a lot like everybody else has to do. But the fact that some of the tallest ones are off the lot line is just a further slap in the face, quite frankly. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Again, as a matter of fact, we don't adjudicate over lot lines, so that meeting is January 25th. Okay, anybody else? Please, come up, just read your name in the record and.
Thanks. Sally Puff Courtney, a 50-year resident in July. And I appreciate all that you do. Giving back to the community is one of the most important things that we can do. And I certainly appreciate all your time. But I'm disappointed, not in HARC. Actually, when I think about this project and I think about the fact that we, the town, spent $54 million on the valley floor to enter this historic town that we all love and have preserved through HARC. And now we have this, the mass, the scale, it seems all out of proportion. It doesn't seem like it goes with the town of Telluride. And I've been really happy with HARC. HARC has been that you're on it. You follow the rules. The problem that I have is that the town makes the rules, yet the committees make the rules, and then the town doesn't follow their own rules. And it's not fair. It's not right. And I don't understand it. I would beg you to follow the rules on this. This is the gateway to our community. $54 million coming into the gateway. And then we have this. And they're just, to me, I was shocked when I saw the polls. I'm getting some Voodoo Lounge recollections here with the height. And I beg you to stick with the rules. I don't know why the town gets to break the rules and we as private citizens who build homes and who build projects, you guys are tough on us. You make us stick to every letter of the law. And that is not the case here. The other thing, Matt brought up some things that I've been working on this and listening to you all night, but I think that the neighbors, I don't know whether you contacted them or not, but I see this as an opportunity to build a project. If you could talk to them perhaps and have them take the eastern 2 townhomes or something, and then do the whole project with underground parking. And this is for the 50 years I've been here, and Luke was, whoever said it was right on the parking. We've been talking about this forever. This is one of the most congested areas to the town of Telluride. I look at the pretty pictures and I go, it's a joke. You've got parking on Main, Colorado Avenue coming into town. Did you see what the parking looked like today? Did you see what our roads look like today? I mean, they're filled with snow. I don't even know whether that's going to actually work, but in every project that I've ever seen, parking's always been said that you have to have it on your property. Not on our main street, not on the entrance to town. You can build underground parking. I did it on South Oak Street. I was below the flow line. It can be done. I know it's expensive, but we're talking about an important part of town. I also think by building that parking, then you don't have the garages above, you don't have the outside parking, and you actually have more room for more affordable housing. So I just think there's a big miss here. I still would love to see us build a nice big project on a big piece of land like the Pearl property or something like that and get this over with and solve affordable housing property in 2 years and not continue to do these small little projects, which seem to be taking a long time and not a whole lot of result. So I guess, let's see. The neighbors, the parking congestion, the entrance to town, trying to get more affordable housing, not less. And this goes back a couple projects ago, but I missed public comment. The one building, I think it was the second one, looks a little bit like a Fairfield. We can do better than this. You guys have the guidelines, you have the rules, and you have the regulations to do it. I just plead with you that you do it. Thanks.
Anybody else in the room before we go to some electronic hands up? Then you get one more chance. I'm gonna call on Patty McIntosh, who's been waiting patiently. Their hand raised, if you'd like to unmute yourself.
Yes, I agree with the last three people that spoke. They've been in town for many, many years. And I live in Telluride Lodge, and we go underground and increase the size of our condos. And I suggested at one of the last meetings that the parking goes underground. And now hearing that Jim Lucarelli says that we can do it, I mean, I don't understand why this isn't an option. And I think as far as the mass and size, it is too big for our little neighborhood. And as far as the color combinations and the materials that look to be used, I think they look very uninviting. The boarding house with that long style, I understand that's the boarding house, but to put it in a white color, again, I just think that this is not a acceptable project as far as what's being shown tonight. I think that the railing on the decks, I think I like that. I think it looks like Mendota, which again, I think is a great project. As far as the color combinations go, I like the dark blue and the brown, the pink and the blue and the white just don't seem to blend with the town. I think there could be more color combination and materials. So thank you all. I know that you put a lot of time and effort in this, but I agree with Sally saying, wow, this is the gateway to Telluride. It's unfortunate. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Sandrico? You want to unmute?
Hi, this is actually Dennis Andraco again. I had to switch devices, but I would like to definitely agree with what Lucarelli and Sally Puff said. Obviously parking is an issue that everyone is concerned about, and I'm curious as to why none of the other projects have considered building above parking or sub-level parking. And then another consideration that hasn't been talked about that as far as the mass and scale, we're creating these huge footprints with roof lines and everything, and nobody has spoke to snow removal when you're starting to abut up to other properties. You're losing these green spaces that used to be there to pile snow, especially in the tower house condo scene. There's nowhere to put any snow on days like this when you need to plow and clear that area. So that's another thing that maybe the applicants need to consider as far as that kind of mitigation. Thank you.
Thanks for your time. Lars Carlson. Please unmute.
Hey, everyone. Nice to talk to you again. as one of the few people that live in this neighborhood, I live directly adjacent to the school. I completely agree with what everyone else is saying about parking. It is just there's just not enough parking for all the units on the western part of town. You know, there's too many condominium buildings where we've let them, build less parking for all the units. And I think it's true for their employee housing units as well. And here, we're trying to push parking onto the street, but there just isn't enough parking on the street. I go by this site every single day. And I really have to say, I mean, this is our entrance into town, and it feels like it's right in your lap. I mean, it's just the mass and scale is too large as you enter town. You look at all the other buildings and they're pushed back. And I agree with whoever said that Mendota, maybe it was Patty. I think Mendota is a great project. And I'd love to see us kind of move more along those lines, because I think the mass and scale of this is just too big, and it really takes away from the entrance into town. Thank you very much.
Okay. Anybody else in the room have any comments? I see no more electronic. This is okay. Sorry. Yeah. So if you would, respond to those that you can.
I'd like to address the parking, because we have studied it, and I don't go over all that again because we went over it with you guys a lot, but we have a team of engineers that have worked on this ramp multiple ways. We've moved it around the site. We've tried a lot of different potential layouts for parking, and there's just not a way to go underground from what we've seen. So I'm surprised to hear that they were able to figure that out, because our engineer wouldn't stamp the drawings if we made a ramp that steep. So that's one thing that I wanted to address. This is why it's laid out the way that it is. We wanted to break the mass and scale into two separate buildings for this site instead of one massive building, which is what a parking garage would probably push us towards. And I think we could probably put together a precedent study that show a lot of very similar scale buildings in this neighborhood and adjacent across the street, that are very similar to this in scale and mass. And it fits, I think, within the treatment area, and those are our comments in response. So
What was a surprise to me that a board long before me approved this with a garage, but maybe that's something that somebody could share with you.
yeah, I'd love to see it. We studied it.
And I know there's some other public comment, but unfortunately, we cannot return to public comment by our rules right now. So we're not willing or able to take additional comment right now. But thank you, John. And before we start deliberations, if this board does not, usually I'm more stringent, but if this board does not want to see, I don't think it'll confuse me with looking at conditions 1 through 8 and whatever else as John has instructed us, and only that. But it might influence my decision on whether it's March or not. But we'll just take a straw poll and I'll go with the majority. So
I mean, I just don't know what we're supposed to do with it other than say, yep, there it is. Can't provide feedback, can't incorporate any conditions.
right, that's true.
What's the point? We can get it later.
Well, it might affect March or February for me. I just speak for myself. But-
Yeah,
so
that's
you're
fine.
no. Okay, that's
Yeah.
okay.
Pretty hard no.
Okay. Stacy, straw poll.
I think I have sort of the same feeling that Kieran does. What are we supposed to do with it? Can't put in a condition, can't be part of the discussion. This isn't a work session.
Okay.
I appreciate the applicant did come in with work sessions originally on these projects, or at least most of them. So I would support at least having a look at what they're thinking about, even if we're not commenting on it.
Bob?
I think there's a lot to do. And I would like to see what they've suggesting. We don't have to comment on it. We can just see it, maybe. But I think there's still a lot of condition number 1, condition number 6, particularly are important, the porches and all that. You still got to do a lot of work to do to get this thing where it steps down to the street, to the sides of the property. way we've been asking for.
Well, on one hand, I wanted to ask the question. Oh, well, go ahead. Let's finish comments.
No, I'm in agreement with Matt and Bob.
Okay, Elisa.
It's not consistent. We haven't, I don't recall doing this for any other applicant.
I
Have
remember,
we?
remember doing it once.
They've
but
shown them, we've,
fair.
after the fact, when we didn't know they were gonna show them.
Well,
kinda
I just want to be
sucked it in, so.
consistent and be procedurally correct, that's all.
You know, on one hand, you could say, well, when they met with Jonna, why didn't they bring those ideas up then?
Well,
But, you know,
It's neither here nor
I'm
there.
also, whether it was private or public, being blind to the applicant, at least, I guess it's the intellectual curiosity that says, well, we're gonna make a decision tonight, be unaffected by this, except for me, only the date. But it seems like there's a majority that would like to at least,
shouldn't we at least make the motion then beforehand?
and
If
then
it's,
see it
if
later.
it's not gonna affect the outcome, then
What's the point of order on that, would be my question.
Okay, would you rather do that
I just don't want to
procedure?
trip ourselves up here.
Okay,
We asked Jonna.
Yeah.
her opinion.
Yeah.
I think, seeing something after the motion is made is, actually like opening up a new application for a work session that we haven't noticed for. I guess,
we've got a majority that would like to see it, but do you have?
is it curiosity or is it just, in an effort to move things forward, hopefully a little more
Well,
quickly?
of course, I'm always trying to move things forward, but
And I misspoke. I would actually like to comment on what they're suggesting and not be silent. That's the whole point.
No, I
And
don't,
then think
yeah,
about
I
it.
think,
You
I mean,
can't
the
do
point of looking at it would be to say, yes, maybe that's the right direction and, you know,
But that's, it's, we're wrapping a work session
yes, it
into
feels off.
an item. It
lot
doesn't
like a
feel
work
right.
session.
to
I'm
me.
out, man, I'm walking out of here if
We-
we start
we-
doing that. That's
We didn't
not
mean to
what-
cause any issues. We just wanted to be helpful so we can.
okay, well, we'll take
Just,
it off the
I'd love
table.
to see what you have in mind.
Hearing
Just
this discussion,
procedurally.
I would back off. Say,
Not see it?
Yeah.
Okay, we won't.
You can see it in February
Well, maybe.
or March. Yep.
Okay, so we'll have our deliberations.
Thank you.
Welcome. Deliberate.
I mean, it's not really close.
Well, we have conditions 1 through 8 plus several others discussed. So who would like to comment first?
Well, I'll go, sure. I haven't gone first yet tonight, so I'll go first. 1, 3, and 6, big ticket items. Provide additional, it could say additional because they have provided some stepping down up to this point along the north and south facades. That's kind of a big one. I think especially that center form, and we saw it in the story polls. We saw it in the 3D coming down the street. That is the most pronounced ridge line along that streetscape.
So you get to the courthouse or else.
Right. Into Main Street commercial, right?
So 1, 3, and 6, but you're also saying the height of this center module needs to come down.
At the front facade.
Yeah, we're looking at.
It's the kind of, it's the same thing we just talked about. There's no planar stepping back. There's stepping back in plan, but then those planes go all the way to the root, all the way to the top. There needs to be some articulation horizontally.
Yeah.
Simplify the roof form. That's pretty tough. Again, stack gables, you end up with crickets and weird drainage patterns. Front porches crossing a property line. I mean, that just tells you how hard they're pushing to the north. 1 or 2 story elements at property edges. I mean, I see a 2-story element at the northwest. Certainly no 1s.
Well,
We beat that horse before and didn't get our 1 necessarily on other
but
projects.
still on this list.
Yeah. I think there's those 9, at least 3 of those are big hitters.
lot to do.
Lot to do.
Yeah, it's significantly, I mean, simplify, significantly bring down some of the mass and scale of it. It's too big.
I'll go a little further. As a community member and as a HARC member, I understand that this may cost a unit. but this is the fabric of our historic district. Not district, we're outside the district in this location, but it's the entrance to our historic district. I think it, as a compromise for the health and the vitality of our historic district, a compromise on a unit or two is in the best interest of the community at large. I understand it is affordable. We're not supposed to, I'm not even supposed to be having this conversation about the use.
But we've all done the math, everybody at this table, and it's 3 units, but that's all right. Okay, I'm gonna just go out on a limb. Comments, other deliberation comments? You agree with, or want to add something else?
Well, I mean, we brought up the parking in the work session, and that seems to be one of the biggest topics too from public. I mean, where are these people gonna go when they gotta remove the snow out of there? There's nowhere to go park, especially on a day like this. It's just gonna be more chaotic. And I just, if there was approved plans by HARC, that should be in a file somewhere for this project. I mean, it changes everything, and I know that's a lot.
Town staff is aware of this, not our town staff.
Right.
Other members of this town staff are aware of this that we're here.
Right, it would just, having something like that, if it were possible, and an engineer signed off on it, it changes everything, and everything we're having problems with.
I don't think you can bring a fire truck down there as well in the parking area. You don't have to fight the fire from Colorado.
Our purview.
I know.
Yeah, I mean,
And it just,
All right, well, unless there's other deliberations.
I do have.
This is the biggest. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so I want to bring up again, the introduction, number 4, about the front setback. I feel that it should be substantially increased. That,
Paul?
Yeah.
Yes.
No,
No, that's a no. 1, yes.
only because we did that, we've been down that path already. Planning and zoning backed them off as well from their original ask.
But they're not done yet with planning and zoning. I think they're wanting to hear what we say, but you can be a no. There's a yes, there's a yes. 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 Further setback on the front. From Colorado?
Whether they're meeting our requirements for setback.
I'm suggesting they are not, and they need to
They're not.
increase the setback.
You're not in favor of the right of way vacation,
In my opinion, they're not.
or there's too much right of way vacation being given up.
I'm not focused so much on how they're moving the property lines in the right way. I'm focused on the setback of the mass and scale from Colorado Avenue. And specifically, in the introduction to this section, says that there are 4 distinct areas, and that should essentially color all the guidelines. And it describes a landscape buffer, a green corridor, and tunneling your experience
To the
to be
historic district.
compressed into the historic district. And that's something I've mentioned with.
In the introduction.
Yes, in the introduction.
And that didn't strike me as much even at the last meeting with these year endings until I saw the story polls, which told the story about that. So they were very helpful.
I have another substantial thing similar to the east building. I feel that this building would help by being grounded on the eastern and western sides and not floating. I won't rehash all those discussions, but I feel like a similar move would help.
But it's a bit different in this condition because this is antithetical towards stepping down. The whole project reaches out.
I personally think, but between whether this lower wall plane steps out from where they have now or steps in as a cantilever in certain areas, there are ways to.
But on the other one, there are bookends.
Yeah.
On this, on the south elevation, the mass and scale reaches forward over a void space.
Could you show the east side of this building again, maybe south and east? So you're talking about that area below
Yeah,
the windows?
So if you could zoom into the more parking lot side. So where you have the massive columns holding up the blue element. And again, I don't think that side wall reads on the elevation, so that does help. And if you would spin around to the western side.
You just
Sorry,
want the parking to be more enclosed.
I want to enclose the parking and I want to ground the building. And I agree, it's not as pronounced as on the east building. So if you scroll to the western side between Clark's. Sort of not showing what I'm trying to see. There you go. You could argue that this side is more obscured. As long as the Clark's building is there.
Mhm.
Sure, which condition?
Same condition. So I would, AC 23, third paragraph, first sentence, and AC 20A and 20A1.
20A and 28, yeah, I got it from the last one.
Another more minor,
Excuse me, as long as Clark's there for the rear of the building, but this protrusion right here in your face is, even though it's only 35 or 36 feet tall.
I guess I'm less concerned about the western elevation
that's-
than the eastern because it's more visible.
So you want to see a one-story on the other side?
No,
Comply with the guidelines?
I'm talking about enclosing the parking.
Oh,
Both sides.
okay. All right.
Another more minor thing, but about the change in wall planes from the foundation material to the siding material, all these, as far as I can tell, all these planes are aligned. And to me, they give the impression they're gonna use fake stone with wood or cement siding. So I would like to see a change in wall plane where you have stone or brick to wood siding. There's an example of what I would like to see.
Hierarchy of materials. 30, I believe. 30,
31.
A1.
31A, 2 and 4. AC 30, AC 30A, 1 and 3.
Okay. What else?
I have my other same minor sort of procedural conditions I would add is from the
For
amendments.
the whole 34,000 and
Well, this one is actually required to have a 2 models for the project. So again, 3D views, clearly label the exterior materials and the elevations. Those are, I think, all of my
okay.
comments.
Everybody concur with those or want to take issue with any of those?
I think there's 1, 3, and or 1.
So the new ones beyond what?
2 and 6 are biggies.
Yeah. So the new ones beyond 1 through 8 are reduction of height of that center mass module under mass and scale, which is same conditions as AC 6 and AC 23B, B3, H2. What are we gonna suggest about this 1 or 2 story? And we don't even quite have a 2.
I mean, it's in the motion to provide 1 and 2-story elements.
Okay.
Not for us to design it.
I agree with Kieran.
Okay. But reduce the height to the center core is 1, front setback, seemed like we had consensus. And the change of wall plane, change of materials, and then the other ones that you added on the other motions.
Yes.
Would you like to make the motion?
Yes.
Check the date.
Oh. The date. I'm sure you're gonna say February. Aren't you?
If you guys want to push this one, we can push this one.
I think in all due conscience, good conscience, and give you a chance to get this right. I think we should go to March. This is the most complex of anything I think we've almost ever adjudicated, and we got 1 approval tonight, which is great. And I just think I'd suggest Everybody okay with March? We'll have another.
Put it on the agenda. I'll look at it. Doesn't matter what month to me.
Okay, Matt.
Okay, sorry, my throat's getting a little dry. I've got all these written down unless you want me
He's
to.
got them all typed out.
And then
Okay, I move to continue to the March 20th, 2024 HARC meeting, the application for the preliminary large-scale new construction for the Canyonlands Northwest Building at Lot 3, Block 1, Canyonlands subdivision to the town of Telluride based on the staff memo dated January 17th, 2024, and with the following conditions 1 through 8 as stated. Condition number 9, substantially increase the front setback to allow for more mature trees and landscaping to reinforce a green corridor and landscape buffer per AC introduction number 4, AC 16B, AC 17, AC 17A and B, B1 and G. Number 10, provide a change of wall plane between the foundation material and the siding material to mimic the traditional masonry unit sizes and application methods per AC 31A 2 and 4, AC 30, and AC 30A 1 and 3. Condition 11, on the east and west sides of the covered parking, provide a substantial connection of the walls above to the ground per AC 23, third paragraph, first sentence, and AC 20A and AC 20A1. Condition number 12, clearly label the exterior materials on the elevations and materials per, material sheet per land use code section 7-207I and 7-207G. Condition number 13, in lieu of physical scale models, provide 3D views of the project showing existing and proposed neighboring contexts per land use code section 7-205I. Welcoming that. This motion is based on evidence and testimony provided at a public hearing held on January 17th, 2024, with notice of such hearing as provided as required by the Telluride Land Use Code, and I would welcome some friendly amendments.
I second that.
Was that 13? The last
That
one?
was 13.
So you ready for a 14?
Need a,
Well,
yes,
Karen's
yes.
got a, did you say?
No, I did.
Oh,
Bob
because he,
seconded.
okay, sorry.
Yes.
I'm so used to
Friendly.
looking this way.
Sorry.
Would you consider a friendly amendment 14 to reduce the height of the south elevation center mass to reduce mass scale of the building per 23 intro, 23 B1. That's enough. Oh, well, that should be the right, including, that's enough. Would you consider that?
Yes.
I agree.
Any more?
Agree.
Okay, that's 14. Kiernan,
Kieran, yes.
Stacy, yes.
Matt, yes.
Mark, yes.
Bob, yes.
Okay, we wish you the best. See
Thank
you.
you.
So at 9:15, we're adjourned.
We have anything else?
Thank you all. Thank you all for coming or listening. Right.
South or north?
You said south, center, south. So you're 14, condition 14, you were talking about the south facade.
Yes, reduce the center mass south.
Of the south? Okay.
The south?
Or the north?
Oh, God.
Can't make them out now.
You meant the north?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant
We
the
were only
south.
talking about that.
That's why I was trying to wave you down, but I know it's not in order, so.
So you can you reopen the meeting? Did you adjourn the meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah. Reopen the meeting.
Yeah, I'm gonna reopen
Provide a
the.
Reopen the public.
Motion for item number 4.
14.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you need to reopen the item.
You have to reopen the meeting and reopen the item.
Do we have to reopen public comment as well? Okay.
Okay, so I'm reopening the meeting. I'm 17, 2 minutes later. And on the friendly amendment number 14.
Open the item.
You have to
on
open the
agenda.
item.
So, yeah, you
Oh.
have to read the whole description.
Oh, okay, reopen the item. Okay, on the Canyonlands Northwest, consideration of large scale application, Canyonlands Northwest for the new construction outside of the THLD at Lot 3, Block 1, address as shown in the Accommodations 2 district owned by the town of Telluride. First design and staff member Jonna Wenzel. We just had a motion and approval and a mistake. And I would like to revise the friendly amendment on number 14 to read the north elevation, which is what we were all talking about the whole time, and the applicant knew it because they raised their hand. To say north, not south.
You restate the whole.
Oh,
whole
okay.
amendment.
To reduce the center mass height on the north elevation per 20 AC 23 intro. 23. Yes. Of the center section. 23 intro. 23. All right, so 23A 1.
I think that's what you said.
I'll accept that.
I accept that.
Vote.
Kieran, yes.
Stacy, yes.
Matt, yes.
Mark, yes.
Bob, yes.
My apologies.
Okay.
Now you're.
Thanks for trying to get my attention.
Adjourn.
Turn the meeting now at 9:19.
Oh, unanimous.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that would have been tough.
Thank you.
Thank you.